I'll join you in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. To start off with the meeting, I wanted to open up the meeting to the public who are here to address anything that is not on the agenda, because we will have public comment during the agenda. So, Mr. Gaynor, I know you have your name down.
Keep connecting over. Well, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. Mike Gaynor, 8 Cobbetts Lane. And I have my glasses here somewhere. I apologize. I'll try and move through this as quickly as possible. As I think some of you might be aware, I know the town attorney is. My background is in building and zoning, code consulting. I own a company out of Chicago that offices all throughout the United States. And we work with municipalities who provide consulting services on these items. Specifically, I just found out the other day, we're providing consulting services on the Historical Society. I had no idea, with Jeff Feinberg. He should have came over to my house and I would have answered his questions for him. So in any event, that's the basis for my background. And I came across some guys collect butterflies or whatever. I follow building code events as they're happening inside of these various towns throughout the East End. And I saw that the Perlman Center was going through a major project renovation over there. And as a result of that, they're going to be changing their use from an existing non-conforming use of a camp to that of a school. So they're a not-for-profit organization that's a school that's going to be located inside of a residential zone, an AA zone. And so Reed Karen denied them a permit for that, and he's requiring them to go through the special permit process that the town has, which is not for the faint of heart, if you're familiar with it at all. It's like the application for the permit process is like 29 pages long. And so his denial reads, at this time, no building permits can be issued for the current scope of work until you first obtain a ZBA special permit to change the use to that of an educational institution, which is permitted use in zone AA with a ZBA special permit per town code 137.7. And so that all got me to thinking about Sylvester Manor Educational Farm. And people know that I'm not very happy with Sylvester Manor Educational Farm for a bunch of different reasons. The manor itself, I have tremendous appreciation for. The way it's being run, I don't have an appreciation for. And so I'm looking at this environment, and Sylvester Manor is also an educational not-for-profit that's existing inside of a AA zone, a residential zone. And so in order to operate there, they acquired all the buildings. So what was formerly a residence, when Alice Fisk died, that house that was just a single family home was the biggest home on the island. She had a 243 acre backyard or whatever, but at the end of the day, she was just a townie with a house on the island. And then that house in 2005, Sylvester Manor Educational Farm, which was a not-for-profit, took over that house and turned it into offices. They have sign there, it says office, they have a parking facility, people go there, they have big screens. We all know about the history of Sylvester Manor, what goes on there. They run a daycare facility out there, they host weddings, they do all of these things. They have a retail establishment. None of these things are permitted inside of a AA zone. And so I went down the rabbit hole on this, and I found a bunch of articles from 2013 from the Reporter, where they touched on this topic, where the Sylvester Manor actually went in front of the board and discussed this topic. And the executive director at that time was Kara Loritz, who's I just found out was the former editor to the Shelter Island Reporter. I found that interesting. She says, Sylvester Manor is treated as a single residential property, which limits what we can do. While zoned residential, we are not a residence. And so that article was written by Ambrose Clancy in May of 2013. He wrote another one. He followed up with an editorial in May 31st, said the exact same thing about all the things that they want to do there. They want to have staff housing and all these various things. And he says that the town fully supports. Ambrose Clancy writes, Supervisor Doherty, a tireless champion of the manor, and other board members voiced no opposition to the request for a preliminary hearing. Mr. Doherty suggested that the manor representatives keep the board apprised of specific plans, which is also something the Reporter believes is a sound idea. And so my question is, I went down there, I can't find any history of Sylvester Manor ever being required to get a special permit to operate that use inside of a residential zone. Everybody inside of this room has been here during the period that this thing has been operating. And I'm wondering if anybody remembers that happening. These special permits are like really major undertakings. Everybody in the community within 200 feet of the property has to be notified by a certified letter. There's public hearings. It's a big deal. Pearlman's going to go through it right now. They probably won't get a permit for a year. Does anybody ever remember Sylvester Manor getting a special permit to operate that business inside of a residential zone? It would have been circa 2015.
And that was before my time on the board, and I think everybody else. So we will look into it. We will look into it.
You'll have to look into that. Okay. That would be helpful because my concern is,
CBA as well, so it's a different board.
yeah, I mean, Ben, you were a director and the president over at Sylvester Manor. Do you ever remember going in for a special permit? It would have been a big event.
Well, the years that you're referring to were the years that I stepped down from the board. There were a couple of years that I left and then came back later. And the Cara years were the years I was not there.
Okay. I was looking at the tax returns and it said you were there during those years as a director on their tax returns from 2013 all the way to the most recent one, which is 2022.
Yeah, I don't remember if they took me off the records or not, but I left.
Okay.
In fact, I'd be asked to come back.
My concern is that I think there's a distinct possibility that the previous administrations might have turned a blind eye to this event because they're very supportive. A lot of people are very supportive of Sylvester Manor inside of this community. My concern is they might have turned a blind eye to that. If that's the case, there's nothing we do about that. That happened. I'm hopeful. I find this new administration very promising. Everything I've seen so far, very promising. If in fact that business is operating over there illegally without a special permit, we're going to require businesses like the Pearlman Center to go through that process. They need to get that process. And I'd like to know how that happened, that local government allowed that to happen. I think we all need to know. So that's my question for Jay. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Christina, is Kenny outside the door? Not an agenda item, but Ken Lewis just wanted to come in. Oh, and here he is. Nope, come on up to the podium. You're up.
Okay. So I'm here to play, huh? Or a play.
Hello.
Hi, Ken Lewis, Highway Superintendent. I just want to take this quick opportunity just to give a shout out to all my crew today. They're doing a great job. It's a sloppy mess out there. Started out with, salting, sand in the roads, trying to get something down. And now it's a full-on push, but they're doing a great job. They're going to be here right till those roads are cleaned up for us. This is all supposed to break up around hopefully 3:30, so I think we're going to be in good shape. And we'll stay right till, have everything salted and sanded and finished by the end of the night. So it should be in good shape for overnight and into the morning. If we get any deep freeze, we'll obviously be out early tomorrow morning, make sure the roads are good too. But just want to compliment those guys. They're doing a great job, as they always do. And thanks to Amanda Gucci in my office today. She's in, she does the double duty between PD and us, but she's in fielding a lot of phone calls today. And so, she came in too. And as everybody knows, she's pregnant. So going out through the weather is probably not like her great idea of a great time, but she's a good sport and she's doing a great job for us. So I just want to thank all those guys. My reason for just coming in, I wanted to just get it out to the town board and to the public. As some of you may know, or may have seen, if you've been into the recycling center lately, we have a new office container that's been delivered to us from Casone that Brian Sherman was very involved with, and Meg too was involved in the sort of layout and getting this thing on board to come in and replace our existing scale house. So my plan is we're going to try to get it temporarily operational on February 27th. I have the scale house, the scale company is going to come. They're going to, and in concert with Dave McGahee, our electrician, we're going to try to get the new building temporarily energized and online to be able to use the scale so that we can then start to tear down the old building and prep what we're going to use for a foundational base for the new building to sit on once we get to that stage. But I don't want to lose too much time with it. So I'm going to try to close down on February 27th for the day so we can get this work done. The scale guy said, he said it could only take a half a day, but I'm trying to err on the side of caution. So any scale and any sort of material loading and unloading will be not happening on that day on the 27th. But the recycling center will be open for regular business, for regular recycling, for household garbage, and the goodie pile, of course, will still be open too. So I just wanted the board to be aware of it, and the public can be aware of it. I've asked the chief if we can use the mobile messaging sign. So about a week before, we'll probably have it right here in the center of town, with a message saying that the scale will be closed on February 27th. I've asked Christina and Catherine Ryan in my office will get it up on the website so everybody knows. But I want to get as much lead time out to the public as possible. And I know Amanda spoke with Kevin this morning, and we spoke with the systems manager for the scale. We have a lot of the contractors that we utilize. We have all their emails. So we're going to send out an email blast to them too, just to give everybody, I'm sure there's going to be one or two people that might not see it, might not get it, might be unhappy when they show up, but the plan is to try to get it out to as many people as possible and hopefully just have this one day. And then we'll be operating out of this new building temporarily. And it may require a minimal shutdown one more time to get it set into place, and then we'll be back and running. So again, when that happens, I'll update everybody and keep everybody apprised of it. But I just thought I wanted to get this out as many weeks in advance as we could. So that's what I'm doing. So if you guys have any questions or
Maybe a sign on the window.
what's that?
Maybe a sign on the window of the scale.
Oh, we can
So
do.
guys don't load up. and
That's a
then
good
pull it
idea.
in.
Thanks, Al. That's actually a
Yeah,
good idea.
you do.
I'll add. That's a simple one to do too. We can do that. I'll make sure to do that because they're right there seeing it when they coming in. Good idea. All right. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks, Ken.
Have a good day, everyone.
Before I get back to agenda items, I didn't open up to the Zoom audience anyone who wanted to speak non-agenda topics, but we do have a hard stop for Kevin on the presentation of the website, so I wanted to get that agenda item. I also see a couple more people came into the in-person audience, so if there's anyone who, after the website presentation, wants to address a topic that's not on the agenda, I will reopen that up to the public before continuing on the rest of the agenda. But I wanted to make sure Kevin gets out of here by the time he needs to. Both Kevin and Christina are going to be speaking to our new website, which is going live on Thursday. And it's been at least 7 months in the making, even longer, because we put in for the money last March is when the request came in to do an upgrade. It's something that came out of discussions for the comprehensive plan to make the website, better outreach, better communication, give the public opportunities to have a notify me function so that when something is going on with a town board meeting or planning board or ZBA or any other committee meeting that want to know what's happening, agenda's been posted, meeting's been canceled, things of that nature. We got that up and running. And we have a website committee. I've been a member on that as a town board member and continue on as supervisor with Christina and Kevin, of course. Chief Reed, because he has a lot of IT needs. I think who else am I missing? Coco, of course, because she helps with everything. But so we are very excited about this. We want everyone to understand that there's going to be hiccups as we roll this out. So there may be, things that don't get uploaded correctly. Christina will show us when she goes through the demonstration. If you do notice these things, how to get in touch with the IT department so that we can be made aware of anything that needs tweaking or updating. I'll turn it over to Kevin to just go through a little bit of the history of why we got to.
Yeah, why we're here. So as Supervisor, as mentioned, comprehensive plan outreach kind of began. This was kind of like the catalyst of all of this. The website that we currently have is very limited in what it can do. Yes, it is a very cheap way of running a website, but the Squarespace is what we currently use as a provider is not really curtailed to our needs as far as daily updates, adding agendas, minutes. There's no real file storage solutions that make sense on the backside of the website. What you see on the front side is one thing, but on the backside, it's just there's no organization that can happen. So currently, the whole website is a giant mess on the backside, and with Squarespace and how it works, there's not a whole lot of way to clean that up. The other one of the main key points is there's really no delegation of power with Squarespace. As soon as you give someone access to the site, they get the entire website. So we never really delegated anybody to other than the core three of us, Coco, Christina, and I, to manage the website. So the clerks, every time there's an agenda, there's a minutes, whatever, it all has to come through us to be put up, and we're not necessarily always available every minute of every day. So it initially went down a rabbit hole of getting notifications. So then we realized the website really could be changed, or really is due for an update. So we initially looked into notification options and what we could use in working with the website, but then it just didn't make a lot of sense with the amount of money that was going to need to be spent and time managing the two. So we went down and started looking at vendors for new websites, and we reached out and we did multiple vendors. We did, I think, we had like 5 or 6 meetings of different vendors. I reached out to multiple towns of using all the different vendors. Some were upstate New York, some were local. And pretty much everybody pointed us in the direction of Civic Plus, and that's who we ended up going with. Yes, they are a little bit on the pricey side compared to everybody else, but then there were a couple of towns and villages I reached out to that used one of the other providers and had switched to Civic Plus, and they said, don't even bother with the other ones. They'll promise you the world and you'll never get it. So yes, you pay a little more with Civic Plus, but it's the top of the line as far as reliability, how management, and delegation of power of who can do what on the website. Where the other sites, they promise you can do that, but one of the guys I said, he's like, we asked for it for years and we never got it. We're looking around us, Southold Town, Sag Harbor Village, East Hampton Town, East Hampton Village, Southampton Town, Patchogue Village, are just a few that are using Civic Plus, and that's what we are currently going to. As was mentioned, we went out to capital planning in March of 23. Funding was secured in summer of 23. Christina and I worked for the past 6-7 months with Civic Plus directly to migrate everything over. So all the core web pages, which you'll see a demo when Christina takes over, all the core stuff is pretty much been migrated. All the committee pages, all the government pages. There's a couple key differences which she will go over, which, as far as mainly like agendas and stuff like that, are now going to be all, instead of like, say, going to this committee for this agenda and this committee for that minutes or whatever, it's all going to be laid out in one single location, and you'll be able to search for a meeting date, whatever. And whenever you see a meeting, you'll be able to get to the video of that meeting if there is one. Minutes and agendas all be done all in one happy location. And to say now we have delegation of power, so the clerk's office can manage all their stuff. They can post it as it comes in. The agendas and stuff through Agenda Center will be kind of like a real-time document on the website. So as they're entered, they're on the website. There's no uploading or anything like that. It's all real-time. So there should be much less delay of information getting on the website. We did have training in January last month for not only us in the IT department, but also select department heads that went through a 3-day training, which is as fun as you can imagine, to manage how the back end is managed and how they would control and add and change their individual websites, like the police department, the senior center, rec department. They can all manage their pages and their calendar entries, all that stuff, all on their own, without having to filter through us. And also, they were previously using another calendar service, which I don't believe they'll have to continue with. That's like the rec center where they were using that. So we'll be able to pull that away. We won't have to pay for that. And some of the other big selling points too is going forward was the old website is not ADA compliant. And it's kind of a big deal, even on the website sides of things. So the new website will be fully ADA compliant from Thursday forward. It is up to us to keep it ADA compliant as we go forward, but I'd say the people that have been trained in the training were shown how to do that, like as documents are added and removed and stuff or changed, how to make sure that remains as it is, like picture descriptions, document descriptions, whether it's PDF or document, to tag it. So all that stuff going forward has all been trained as far as the select departments that we've done. We can open it up to more in the future. They will just have to go through that training as well in order to be a part of it. We can't just give it to everybody. So that's the basics of how we got here, why we got here, and a little bit of going forward. As I say, Christina's going to show a basic demo of showing the site. The public obviously hasn't seen it yet. You'll show it and show the key things like where you're going to sign in for your account. What you do is you sign up for an account. You can use any email address you want, and you can pick what you get notified for. You'll get a big screen, and you'll be able to choose all the different things: emergency stuff, committee stuff, town board stuff, the various boards. You'll be able to pick and choose what you get notifications for. She'll show you how the calendar works, because the calendar can be a little bit confusing at first, but you can choose what you want to see. By default, I think it shows all the calendars, but you can fine tune it. If you only want to see town board stuff, you just check town board and you'll see that on the calendar and so forth. So just going through, those are the notified stuff, the signing in, and obviously you don't have to sign in to just view the website, but if you want those notifications, you'll have to sign up for an account. And then also the agenda center and the basics of how that works as far as how to find the information for all the individual meetings going forward. That's pretty much all my talking points. Anybody have any questions?
Then we'll bring Christine up and let her do the demo.
Play demo, lady? You want to sit here or you want to sit?
Wait a moment. Here we are. So this is our homepage of a new website that again will go on live on Thursday at 11 o'clock. Between 11 and 11:30, we estimate a minor shutdown for a brief period of the time. So this is the homepage. The main reason why we chose this look is the prominent calendar on the homepage. So again, as Kevin said, I'm going to go through a couple features that this website comes with. The main plus for the public is the sign-in. Here on the top right corner, you can create your own individual sign-in, which allows you to subscribe to the Notify Me feature. So if you follow the prompt, you will end up on this page, and you can subscribe via email, in some instances also via text message, to various lists, email lists, agendas, alerts, bids, calendar updates, job postings, and news flash. You can choose as many as you want, all of them, or just whatever you're interested in. And every time agenda is posted or any alert is posted, you will receive an email with a direct link to the website or to the pertaining document.
Can I interrupt and ask a question at this point? Sometimes we set the agendas on Fridays for Tuesday meetings, and then on Monday, something might get added or taken away. Will that
Yes.
change in agenda get pushed out in an alert?
Yes, that's correct. Yes, we have an option to send out the email every time we update anything on the website or on the agenda. So yes, that's the whole goal of the notification, especially this feature. I'll go through the agenda center. So if you notice, we know this is going to be an adjustment for public, but also for us. That's why we try to adhere to the same lingo that we're currently using on our website. The agenda center is over here. Currently, it's only lists agendas of the past year of the town board. But as Kevin mentioned, moving forward, this will create nice little library of the documents. We have a agenda over here. We will have a minutes posted over here, and this will be linked to the recording of the YouTube. You can choose by the category up here what you wish to see. You might be seeking only zoning board or only the town board. Again, at this point, it only shows the town board because that's the only one that we updated. So that's, this feature is available on the homepage in the bottom menu right here. I would like to walk public through the calendar feature. So again, it's a very prominent on the homepage. You can click on a specific date, or you can click on all events down here. Again, this is the town calendar, meaning that it also lists recreation department, and senior center calendar. Over here, we can pick which one we want to follow. We can choose, let's say, town board and the zoning board. And this lists all the meetings for the rest of the month, right here. All right. So that would be the calendar feature. And now I'll demonstrate two ways how to access a meeting. So one, again, you can go through the calendar. Let's say, I know I uploaded agenda to the zoning board, so I'm gonna look up the meeting of the zoning boards. We have two of them upcoming this month. Let's see the next one. And over here, I can access directly the Zoom link, the location and the time, and also it will direct me towards the agenda that already has been updated there. The other way to access this is to go through the top menu. This is similar way as we currently use. When we click on the committees, this is the same way. We click on the specific committee, and for the public's convenience, we also kept, at least for now, the Zoom access right here. This is a good time to show how the committees and boards pages look. Their recommendation was not to have page longer than 3 scrolls. So we tried to keep it very compact. We use these collapsible menus, thinking that whoever is, let's say, following the planning board, zoning board, they're coming for a specific item to see, and they presumably might know who the members are. So they don't need to always see them displayed, but they're there available with their email addresses as well, if necessary. Documents and the current discussion documents will be listed there as well. Also, the contact information, any pertaining documents for the board and the committee and the upcoming meetings. So that goes for the committee, basically. That's the basic look. What else? I was gonna go through the agenda center. And that's it. So those are the main features that why we chose this website. Again,
We have some recent news.
yes, we do have a recent news over here. We will try to keep our resident up to speed on everything. And here in this first message, we are very excited to present this website, but also I would like everybody to understand it was for our little operation, this was a massive undertaking. And even though we are hoping we're in a good shape and a lot of labor of love went to the website, we are estimating that there will be little hiccups. So we're asking anybody, public and the staff and the committee members, if they stumble upon any issue, to reach out to us. We did put a direct link over here. Kevin, me, or Kako. We will also post a banner on the homepage with the contact information, at least for first couple of weeks, probably, to give a quick access to us so we can fix anything promptly as soon as we're aware of it. And that's all, probably. If you have any questions.
Any questions from the board?
I think it looks great.
Yeah.
One thing, since I know that there's a bunch of committee members watching, on our current website, they are used to scroll down on the homepage, and there are two red buttons for the town email and town SharePoint. We embedded it in this location as well. Should look precisely the same. We ask the chair will place an overview of a new website on their agendas in the upcoming month. However, since the website will go live on Thursday, there is a little period before everybody meets. So this is where, meanwhile, email and SharePoint will be accessible to everybody. All right?
So we as liaisons have to remember to look at the agendas and make sure that.
I look forward to having a private tutoring session with Christina.
Is there anyone from the public who has a question?
I just wanted to make a couple of, sorry, forgetting the rules already. Mike Gainer, 8 comments. There's just a couple of things. Your sandbox environment is live. Anybody can log on to that thing. So that domain name right now is open to the public. I just went through it on my phone. So that's, probably don't want that. On that topic, the redirect, the domain name going forward is still going to be the shelterisland.us.
That's correct. We're utilizing both .gov and US.
So usually when I don't know how you're going to repoint those or whatever, but usually when you go live with this stuff, it can take like 2 days for that to propagate onto the internet. So it won't go anywhere. People will go to the town website for 2 days and it'll just be, depending upon who your domain provider is. So I just wanted to let you know those 2 items. So it might not go live at all. And then one item that was talked about over the years was this concept. I know FOIL requests are very popular with the town clerk's office, and there was supposed to be, and I didn't follow up on this, but there was supposed to be some way to submit them online. That didn't happen, did it? I wouldn't imagine that it would with the Squarespace technology, whatever. Is that inside of there?
No, that's definitely works. I can share the screen again. For now, we are sticking with the current system. Just move it far my way. On the bottom, we get a records, and it outlines basically what we have currently on a website. The town records through the town clerk goes directly email to the town clerk. So if I click on this one, it will pull out the email.
Cool.
All right.
Thank you so much. On that topic, I meant to leave this with you.
So yeah, as we move forward, we're going to try and put more public-facing documents and accessibility there.
Of course.
Okay, we have to give this to the town clerk.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Yes. Pam, you have a question?
Yeah, the website looks very nice. It looks like it won't be too difficult to navigate after we get used to it. My only question is that the minutes and the agendas that are posted on the current website today, it appears that the only ones that will be available come Thursday will be those of the town board and not of the other committees. Is that correct? That the other committees' minutes will have to be loaded onto the new site? They won't be ready on Thursday to review?
That is correct, because the way the interface works, my understanding is that in order to link the minutes in, we would have to go back and create all the past calendars. So we're going to monitor how often we're getting requests for those past minutes. So you'll have to do a FOIL request, but if we start to get a great number of them, especially if it's, planning board or zoning board, which is most likely the ones who are going to have the request, we will we'll come up with a workaround to get those past minutes up there. And Christine, I don't know if you have anything to add.
I just want to add to this, that we've been trying to digitize past several years. So we have created internally nicely robust library of the documents. So items like minutes are very quickly accessible for us. So if Pam, you have a need for all the minutes of planning board from 2002, that is something that can be accomplished very quickly via email. So if it's minutes of 1987, that's something that requires digging out all archives and documents from the archive room. But past 4 or 5 years, we're in a good shape to provide those documents on demand very quickly.
Thank you, Christine.
Okay, so we can just email Christina or Coco, I guess, for any of that. And then,
Yeah.
and then the documents,
I
the
was gonna say,
discussion
yeah.
documents,
Pam, the committee clerk. So if you're looking for
yeah, the
something.
committee clerk.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah. And then the discussion documents that are also there, I mean, I know that Joe's got a lot posted and everything. Are those going to transfer on day one, or those two might take some time to get back up to the new site?
Discussion documents are based on the agenda.
Yeah. Did you hear that?
I did, but some of the discussion documents that we have on the website now go past, further into the discussions, I mean, months ago, so they wouldn't necessarily have to be part of any current agenda, so I just wondered, okay. I'm gonna take that as a no, and they can be foiled for and requested from a clerk or something, as we work forward with this. Yeah,
Right.
it should be very nice. I think it's gonna be great.
Yeah, no, and if something is still relevant, it will get, we will make sure it gets posted back up if we're hitting a new, a topic that we're revisiting.
Right, of course. Okay, great. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on this topic? Okay, as promised, I said I would go back to the public. We had people come in. I don't know if you have specific non-agenda items that you're here to discuss. So I have said past few meetings that if someone has something and they want to come in and not agenda item, we'd let them address it at the beginning of the meeting so they wouldn't have to sit through 2 hours of meetings just to give us a few minutes of comments. So that being said, we will move on to town board priorities and a continuation. So. Getting back out. I don't know if you guys are logging into SharePoint or going back to the paper copies.
No, I'm gonna SharePoint, give me a second.
So just to refresh on what I had previously done was taken the spreadsheet that Meg had designed and then populated it with all of the topics that we had discussed at our very first work session. And then I had added in tier 1, 2, 3, and some things that did not have a tier assigned to them as far as level of importance. And I know, Albert, you made the comment last week about more line items, because were there some additional topics that you wanted to add to the list?
No, let's just stick with this right now. If there is one, I'll certainly bring it up.
Okay, all right. So we had, it looks like maybe 15 items with tier 1. So we need to definitely, just go through and figure out which ones we want to attack first. The first one, and I had just alphabetized based upon whatever description I put in. So changing the wetlands code was one of the items. We are going to get into that a little bit today, just not to get into how we're going to change it, but just how we're going to attack the issue. Committees, when I had my committee chair meeting last week, I did inform all of the chairs that we were going to be reviewing mission statements, and that to sit down with like the chair of the committee and the two liaisons to sit down and just review what the mission is, what we as a town board think these various committees should be focused on and moving forward. And they also can share back up to the town board. But that's just something, that one I kind of think it's a tier 1 item, but it's up to all of us to sit down and get that onto the agendas, or not even agendas, but meetings with chairs.
Got it.
The comprehensive needs assessment, which is part of the facilities master plan, that is something that I want to continue to work with Joe Fenora on, to just start to roll that out and what that would look like and break it down. But there's some more work that needs to be done. I'd originally put it on for last week's work session, but then it got bumped with everything else we're doing.
What's the next step there?
The next step is for us to just define how we want to approach it. So instead of going full-blown facilities master plan, we're thinking about breaking it down and saying, okay, what is the current situation? Like what does all of the town hall, and all of the town buildings look like? How are we using them? What are our needs? What's existing conditions? There's handicap access. We're dealing with some of that piecemeal, but we really should be looking at it on a larger scale, so that as we attack these problems and look at, we need to, fix the water in this building and all of the buildings, what are we going to do with the buildings if we're going to make, massive changes or not massive changes? Where do we start? So before we start kicking off things, we just need to know what's the right path forward. We've been talking about the fact that we don't have septic, up to date in these areas. Do we want to rip up the parking lot and put in new septic, but then we might be doing something different with these buildings in a few years. So how do we, what's the stopgap in the interim? So that's kind of where I'm going with that.
Okay.
The contractor license review board, we need
So
to.
there is a contractor that's working on that?
No.
No, there isn't.
No, we did, I was put in touch with a couple of engineering consulting firms that do this type of work, and one met with us just to really start to understand, and we started dialogue, which gave us some information. We would end up definitely circling back to them when we start to work on an RFP, because when they came to visit, they brought in some engineering staff, they brought in a planner, they brought in somebody who was familiar with septic, they brought in an architect. So they brought 4 people with them that really could,
Oh, yeah. Good.
good eye to look at this stuff. Another one just sent us something, and for $15,000 could write up a report for us. And so they got a little discounted because didn't really get the scope.
Spectrum.
Yeah.
For 10.
Yeah. So that's the type of path that I'm trying to go down. Contractor license review board, we really need to pound the pavement to get another person on that board. We need somebody who has contracting experience, but isn't somebody that we need to look into. So I'm trying to find that
Someone
balance.
who's retired.
Yes, exactly. So just, I don't know if that's something, but so far, as I'm going through, so far wetlands is rising to the top of this. The dock moratorium, we adopted that. We need to wait for WMAC to review.
The WMAC is working on that.
Yes, and they are supposed to be scheduling some meetings.
For some of these things, do you want me to move things that are already in progress up towards the top so that we can keep track of them better, so they're not mixed in with everything else? Like dock moratorium's already in the works. The
Yeah.
center testing's already been done, and we're wrapping that up, just so that we make sure we don't lose track of them, since they're already.
Yes. If you want to start numbering them and giving, yes, that would be good, real time. The dock moratorium, just to dive a little bit deeper into that, what I did is, since we adopted that on February 5th, that means we would need to conclude, what was that, May 6th was adopt the code, which means we would have to set a public hearing at the April 15th meeting, or have the public hearing, I should say, on 4/15, which means we'd have to set the public hearing on March 18th. which is review legislation on March 12th, receive something back from WMAC by March 5th.
It's gonna
So,
be tight.
yes, so I'm just,
I don't think it'll be
yeah, I'm
doable.
putting that out there because the pressure's on, we want to keep the pressure on WMAC, and you two guys are the liaisons, so you need to keep working with the committee to make sure that they do schedule some meetings. Because we're going to need to go back to Suffolk County Planning Commission to ask for an extension. So we need to show them that we are actually serious and working on it. So I just.
They are, they'll have something.
Yeah, so I'm just throwing that in the timeline, just to ensure that we keep pushing on that.
I mean, they're well aware of the timeline, they're working on it, but we will stay on it.
Yes, yeah. The ferry study group, that's another one. That actually should just go up when we can consolidate that with the committees, review the mission statement. We need to get another member on that board, or not, 2 members, I think. But actually, that could be condensed now that I'm looking at this. Fresh pond remediation. That is something that we had applied for a grant, and it was, we did not get it. So what we need to do is bring Joe Fenora in at some point, I know he's listening in now, to actually go through what our next steps are. So my question to you is, I mean, you think he's got pretty much like in his mind, what we need to do to go forward? But it's asking him, he's got a lot on his plate. So do we want to task this as a higher priority and have him come to us in the next month, sometime in March, to go over what
Our
our
options.
Yes.
Do
So,
we know why it's now the time to talk about why we did not get the grant.
yes, I know a little bit. Joe, are you able to chime in? Because you will be much more succinct and on point than I will.
One of the key grant components is that the permit has to be secured through the state to actually receive the funding. And we had expected the permit to arrive in time, but the permits have been delayed through regular activity with the DEC. So because we didn't have the permit in hand, we were disqualified from the grant process.
What's the next cycle for the grant?
It's an annual cycle.
And, okay.
Yeah, so July, is that part of the July one, Joe?
Typically, but the state announces them, so there's some flexibility, but it happens on an annual basis, and the window for receiving applications sometimes shifts, a month or 2 in either directions. They're generally in the summertime.
So I assume the main focus of the next steps is to either reapply for this grant or find another grant? Am I wrong there?
Yeah, that's right. It's about understanding how we'll advance the project in terms of funding and the strategy around that, whether we continue to seek outside funding through these grant cycles, or if we'll evaluate self-funding or fundraising, through the Fresh Pond Neighbors Association.
Yeah, and I think some of it was, if I'm correct, part of it was like repackaging and bringing out it into a different kind of timeline, so that we've got a pilot program and then sort of maintenance, like, is it grant eligible or not? So there's steps that we need to figure out.
Is the pilot program, is there grant funding for that now? We're waiting on the overall project for the grant funding?
It was part of it, like we need the permit and then we can go forward. So
Oh, the whole thing, so we have no financing on the project, okay.
no, we've only had the financing to get us this far.
Okay.
Okay, so do we want to have Joe do some sort of presentation for us in March?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
that would be lovely.
The housing RFP. To stop and think, we were waiting to retain counsel for the Community Housing Board. I know we sent back some corrections to the proposal that they sent, and so I'm just waiting. I didn't see anything yesterday or this morning, but I'll double check that. The attorney was going to fix the wording, and then I can sign that contract and we can get them on board. So I think we're probably looking at later March where a housing RFP could be presented to us.
Sounds about right.
Okay.
There's a lot of time there.
So I'm highlighting, I'm just blocking
Yeah.
this color so you know.
Okay, yeah. I'm like
So for the housing
blocking, yeah,
RFP,
making
RFP I'll do.
boxes. Yeah. The IMA with Suffolk County Planning Commission, we will be discussing later today, so we can just, that's in the works. Implementing the new website, we can cross that off. Irrigation code. We were going to set up a subcommittee on that. We haven't done so yet. Joe and I were kind of tasked with that last year, but other things have kind of pushed it. Is this something we want to try and get accomplished before summer?
I mean, I have some thoughts on it, like on how we can modify the code,
Mhm.
so I don't mind working on it.
Okay.
It's obviously a good thing to work on.
Yes, and before,
Very topical.
before summer, yes,
Yeah, before summer would be good.
Yeah.
Everyone tries to work with it once.
exactly. Yeah, because generally the building department starts to send out the notifications for if it's a permit or like just registration, but they usually go out in April, I want to say. So if we're going to make any changes, we should be cognizant of that date.
Because they have irrigation permits people have to apply for,
Yeah.
renew, that kind of thing.
Okay, so we need to work on that in March also.
I should be busy.
March is going to be busy, which is actually maybe a good thing. Because if we can work on some of these things. We've got comp plan coming up in April, which, where's comp plan on here?
It is line number 9, and then, well, in the modified one.
Okay.
So it's right, it's 2 under irrigation.
Oh, okay, so no, head site plan review. Okay, so it's gotten rejiggered, okay.
Yeah.
We got it on there.
Megan's
down
rejiggering it
Oh,
live,
okay.
so.
Okay, oh, it's down with the number 2, okay.
But I mean, it should be a number
Okay.
1 because it's already in process and we're working on it.
Yeah, it should
So
definitely
I'll
be.
bump it up the list.
Yes, okay, well, why don't we go over comp plan? What I figured in March is we would discuss the need for GEIS, which is, I can't remember what the G is, a general.
General
environment.
environmental.
Impact study.
Yes, okay, I got it, takes a second. So I had planned that we would discuss that in March, the need for one, because I know some in the community believe that we do need one, others do not, so we should have that discussion in March. And then as we get into April, I had that we would, at some point in late, I guess, April, because it'll go back to the comp plan advisory committee. They will take a look at it and get it to us. So I was hoping that we would start to pick off chapters starting April 23rd. And I have a very aggressive timeline on this, is a chapter, a work session. So we would roll up our sleeves and really like pick it apart and try and sign off. The reason being is just a chapter a week, we'd be finishing up, if everything goes according to plan, July 9th. And then we could review everything the end of July and start to have public hearings in August and have a couple of public hearings in August with an eye to hopefully adopting it by September 16th. And the reason I want it adopted then is because if we can adopt this by September 30th, it makes us grant eligible next July. We have to have it done by September 30th in order to be grant eligible so that we can get money to do some of the implementation that we need for hiring a law firm to help us with code rewrites.
Is your thought we're going to discuss the GEIS in March?
Mhm.
And if we collectively agree that it's a good thing,
Then we
we
can,
will put it in the comp plan and that can be funded through the grant process?
No,
no, we'd have to do it before I wanted to discuss it in March because if we need to do it, we need to line up.
And get
Getting
separate
that.
funding for it?
Yes, and also get that done. so that by the time we adopt it, we've got the GIS done as well.
Got it.
So that's why that's on March 5th.
What's the status now of a draft or issues going to the BFJ for a final, another draft?
Yeah, so
When is,
we finished, the CPAC finished their review of the document on Friday,
okay,
or last meeting. So we finished, oh no, we didn't. We finished chapter 10. We have one more meeting, which is chapter 11 on the 20th. Once we finish with chapter 11, then we're going to send all of our edits to the consultants. They will incorporate it all and then give us back a new draft. The committee is going to look at the new draft we get, make sure that it incorporates all of our recommendations, and then the committee will sign off on it and kick it to the town board. So it'll depend on how long it takes the consultants to finish their revisions. And then it also depends on when we can get the committee back together to look at it, discuss it, sign off on it, and send it. There's no way that the committee can meet in March. We just don't have a quorum for that month. So it probably won't be until the beginning of April sometime. I mean, if the committee members feel comfortable reading it and signing off on it via email, if we can get consensus that way, then there's, a chance we could send it forward. But I'd like them to have one more meeting to discuss the draft that we get back from the consultants before it comes to the town board.
And when it comes back to the town board, then CPAC is disbanded?
They don't need to have regular meetings. So if we want to have them come in for a meeting because we have questions, then we can make that request of them. But yeah, essentially they'd be done with their job.
Okay. So getting back to my first comment, that's why we've got a lot going on in March, because once we get to comp plan, we're going to be busy. Under irrigation code on my list, I have the large house moratorium. And we need to get that also moving, because that has the same deadline as
Is
the
it,
dock moratorium.
yeah, is it in the work session for next week?
We don't have a work session next week
Oh, that's
because we're
right.
in Christmas State towns. So I was going to put it on for the 27th. Is that the,
That is the.
yes, 27th. Yes.
Yeah.
So that is the plan that we're going to discuss.
what is the current end date for that right now?
It's the same, May.
It's the same as
May
dock.
5th.
the doc.
Yeah. And so, but that one, we're
That's further
further,
down the line.
yes, we're
because-
further along. So we need to go over it at the 27th. I'd like to review it, like the 27th. Stephen can give us what the subcommittee has been working on. We can go over it both March 5th and March 12th, set the public hearing, and I've got an earlier schedule on this because we set the public hearing for March 18th, and then I got here, have the public hearing April 15th, and possibly adopt the code on the 6th. So.
Is there been anything on the committee working on the large house moratorium?
What do you mean?
Or something that can be distributed to us?
Oh, we'll have to ask Stephen. I don't think so.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, you'll have something presented at the next work session. So you'll have the proposed legislation, and that'll be the start for the conversation. And then, as Amber said, we'll have a subsequent work session to work out any kinks, if any, and then we'll have it ready for prime time.
Okay. And that will include the pyramid piece we talked about?
Correct. I think we should do both. So I'm going to present both at the next work session.
Great.
Okay, terrific.
Something that I'd originally put down is a number one priority, but it hasn't come up other than the first work session that we talked about. It was site plan review, reviewing it, updating it, who should have authority for the site plan review. No one's clamoring for it. We haven't had that many, but
Well, I
feel
think
like
we're gonna
it's-
have a few
I
coming
was gonna
up.
say-
We have some coming up.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
Manor
to be-
Coleman.
proactive. We should get our ducks in a row before we start to deal with these.
Yeah, and we need a site plan review application. We need a whole bunch of things that just don't have yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it has to stay number one priority, and we have to get it done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
We need some exterior expertise on these applications, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them now that I see, land use attorney or a planner that we can have on a consulting basis for a project.
Mhm.
I think we need to start with a discussion. I mean, we're just lightly
Yeah.
touching on these topics today, but I think we need to have a discussion where, we've all sat down and read what we have on the books and looked at the applications that we have, and then try and figure out the direction from there.
Okay.
So we have a few big things already in the works that we should probably wrap up before we take on more big projects. Like I'm looking at like the moratoriums, the,
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, we definitely.
yeah.
It's not, yeah, we can't fit these in.
There's a lot of things.
Site plan review is going to be a bit of work.
It's going to be a process. There's a lot to it, actually. So 1, 2, 3, 10.
I mean, I'm just making them maybe later, like early April, before we get into the comprehensive plan. And we've had some working groups, like 2 town board members and Stephen and whoever else from various advisory committees. I would ask you all to think about who wants to take on doing some of the rolling up the sleeves on site plan review.
Okay.
And I'm just wondering, when do we think we're going to get applications in?
I think we're going to start getting some
Soon.
Yeah.
If I may, the current site plan process right now is with the town board and it's serviceable. I don't think there's a dire emergency that it get changed. I understand that we want to incorporate a planner in reviewing them and advising the board. But what we have now is sufficient as a stopgap measure until you really go through it with a fine-tooth comb and see whether or not you want to retain it or kick it back to the planning board or whatever you want to do. But right now, I think we're all right. And a couple of the bigger projects that you would think need site plan that are currently in the hopper don't need site plan. So I can't think of anything that's imminent.
I would just like to see it maybe an application for site plan review. So it more clearly defines what people need to submit.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, that's really, I would like to at least get that part done, even if we don't overhaul the whole process, at least get a clear application.
Yeah. And I think, because again, as you said,
We're using
special permits and it's not quite the same thing.
Stephen, how do you see a large site plan application proceeding through the system?
well, again, the last one I could think of that we did was Liberty Landscaping, right? We did that, and that it goes to the planning board, they review it, they give a recommendation, it comes to the town board holds a public hearing. And, I know we went back and forth as far as vegetation and things like that and parking. And those are typically the things that you will review, lighting, stuff like that. But we don't have a lot of commercial property and there's not a lot of commercial investment right now. So I just don't think that it is something that, again, I think it's a tier 2, but I think as far as 1, I think you have a lot more things that have to get done. And just so you're aware, we do have a fertilizer. Meg has been working on a fertilizer chapter that we would like to propose to the town board too. So that's something that's ready to be presented. So we have to fit that in too, if that's a priority for the town board.
That's not even on.
I guess my question was, a large site plan proposal, which we have on the docket, which will be coming. How do you see that progressing?
Wait, are you talking, which one? Perlman?
Yeah.
No, Perlman doesn't need site plan. Perlman is not a business. Only businesses require site plan. It's a not-for-profit. So all it needs is the special permit.
From ZBA.
Correct.
Ian is planning board chair. We'll let you bounce in.
Just,
Only because you are on a committee.
Just to maybe simplify things, the planning board had assembled an application many years ago. Maybe that's a starting point you want to look at. It might meet your checklists of all the items you need.
Okay, that would be
Well,
great.
we can put it on a work session list and go through top to bottom. Like,
Mhm.
This is how it works. This is what we, here are the holes. And
Mhm.
let's just sit down and review
So
the
just to
process.
start it.
Yeah. God knows when we're gonna have time in a work session, but let's just start there. And everybody can, it will be in public, everybody can see it and hear it.
Okay. After this work session, I will go back and like really schedule everything in to see how workable it is. Because even with today, 6 items, I took one thing off. And was
Stephen
nervous.
may be right. It may not be a super burning issue.
Mhm. Right.
Gotta get the stock moratorium done.
And large home moratorium.
Yeah. That at least is kind of written and it just needs to be, I mean, I've seen it. But we all need to sit and discuss it. It's done. It's closer to the end as opposed to the doc moratorium being closer to the beginning.
Okay. The next item that I had on the list was taking back wetlands applications, which we will be discussing later. Title transfer for IA systems.
Oh, I step it out here for the truck. Yes.
It's a yes, but I don't have it
Yeah.
scheduled because I didn't really have.
I mean, I made the comment of
Corrections.
sticking it on the work session on the 27th, but I don't know how realistic that is. But it seems like an easy thing to do, but you know, like everything, it has unintended consequences.
Yeah.
Yes,
I mean,
exactly, yeah.
But it was a priority for me.
Yes, it needs to be addressed, we need to look at the unintended consequences, who gets swept in with it, and just, I mean, that's always the trouble that, you know, we have with legislation, is we put something out there and then it's like, well, what about this, and, you know, what about, you know.
I mean, I probably shouldn't even weigh in on it, but I would say it's probably a better bet to do it for failures than it is to do it for title transfer. I think it's, at least then you're guaranteed funding.
Yeah, and the failure is an emergency.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, because right now legally, you're allowed to replace a failure with a traditional system
But
by county regulation.
But the funding question, like we were requiring, if someone had to, Suffolk County Department of Health said you had to replace your septic, we were saying then because it's mandated, you cannot get the funding. So we could revisit that if we're going to do something with title transfers.
Yeah, the way it's.
Or if they're
Yeah.
title transfers for, you know, like someone inherits a property, you know, like, I don't know, just, you know, like,
There can be an exception.
yeah, exactly. So just something to think about.
Yeah, no, that's an unintended consequence. Yeah.
The way it's working with the county and state grants right now is that if your system isn't failing, if it's not brick, block, actively not draining, so it's ponding, coming into your house, you have to pump it regularly, an old metal tank or something prone to collapse, then you're really just not going to get county grant funding because there's such an overwhelming demand for it. So it's really a 3-4 year wait if you don't have a failing system for county grant funding. So there's state grant funding available, but county funding is just another monster.
Unless in November, we can get
Yeah. So
that
yeah,
passed
there should be
at the county level.
So I think we've demonstrated the need to leave it on the discussion list.
Yes, we have, yes, okay, all right, so if we can, for 2 weeks from now, if we can start a discussion on that.
Mhm.
Okay. Next on the list was town planner. And I think the jumping off point on that is, do we need one? What would the person do? How are we gonna fund it? So that's a whole, like, just,
Yeah.
I would just think just on a as needed basis.
We can hire.
I don't think we have the expertise to really
mhm,
look at a true site plan review that's involved. I don't think that exists here. It doesn't with myself.
mhm.
And on a per project basis, I think it would be a good thing. I don't know what that means in terms of cost, but I think it might be money well spent, depending on the project.
And it's also limited by the fact that you bring them in as and when you need
Yeah.
them.
Water testing results was on this list. I don't think there's really,
I pushed that all the way up to the top because it's already in progress.
Yeah, I
The
was gonna
last thing I
say.
could do is send out a letter, just kind of wrapping the whole thing up.
mhm,
So
Mhm.
yeah,
And we were supposed
Already
to
working on
see a
that.
draft of the letter at some point.
they sent it to us via email. We should all
Mhm.
have it.
yeah. And then I think the other part of that conversation, which is, do we want to do something similar for saltwater intrusion in the near shore overlay for certain communities such as Montclair and River Beach? Like, taking it a step further.
Yeah, figuring out what the protocol would be for that is going to be a little different
Mhm.
than figuring out the cost of water testing for saltwater intrusion.
Mm.
And then do we still want to test for nitrates while we're also testing for saltwater? We can do that, but most of the areas out there don't have as much of a nitrate problem because there's not as much retention, so it flows faster through the area, but we can look into it. So we'll talk with Joe and kind of see.
Yeah,
What we can
and
come up with.
WAC was kind of spearheading that. Because didn't,
Yeah.
a couple of residents went to a couple of WAC meetings to ask for that. And I
Yes,
know Atlantic Peninsula came in last year.
Yep.
Requesting. So.
yeah, 'cause they're definitely encountering more frequent saltwater intrusion into the wells.
Mhm.
So it's going to become a problem, and, some of their request is for public water. So figuring out how much of a problem we have is going to be helpful.
So the letter is with us. I'd like to push a discussion to WAC and then have them come back to us then for the
Yeah.
extension.
Yeah. I think they're already discussing
Mhm.
the
I
testing.
missed that email. Who did it come from? It came from Joe?
No, it came from Peter Grand. I can bump it.
Okay.
I'll find it.
The next item on the list is WQI loans. And again, with the county slowdown in funding, it's something that's important if we want to get more voluntary conversions. I think I'd like to keep it a high priority, but bump it to WQI to do the legwork on how to best make it happen. So we'll have to talk to that committee out. This next one, we're now into tier 2, building department inspections. And I have no recollection as to what that was about and why I titled it that way.
Is it enforcement?
That was,
No.
it was a combination of things. It was, I originally put it on there. It was when the building department doesn't get calls for inspections in the middle of a construction project. So when the building department issues a permit, it comes along with a list of inspections that need to get called in. And lately, there's been a whole bunch of projects where they just start the project, never notify the building department, and then they aren't calling in the inspections, and all of a sudden the building department's like, well, what is that doing there? They go up and they're like, all right, well, you missed a foundation inspection, you missed a, and so then it's hard to retroactively go back and be like, all right, prove what you did, so it was kind of, can we come up with some form of penalties for not calling in inspections when you're supposed to, for not following the permit that was issued? Because it's becoming more and more of an issue. The building department is going out, looking at projects, being like, you didn't call us for X, Y, and Z, but now you've already buried it, or you've already, built a house on top of the foundation that we didn't get to inspect and sign off on. So our options are make you tear the house down, or, are there other things that we can do? Is there a series of fines, 30-day delays? Like, how can we make it so that people are aware of the fact that they have to look at the permit and they have to follow the permit? Because then, if our building inspectors are going out there, it almost renders them, useless. Why are they trying to do their job if no one's doing what they're supposed to? And then it's frustrating for them too, because they're trying to do their job and they're always getting pushback, but they don't have any real recourse for some of the issues. So that was kind of why I threw that in there.
I don't want to be a hard ass and rip it out.
Jeez.
I'm just looking up who did I put on the list for building department liaisons? I think it might be you and I, Ben. Just.
I think we have to do something punitive to stop the,
Yeah.
to see how much of an issue it is. Do you
And
know how?
it's not with everybody, it's just some projects are willy-nilly.
Yeah. You and I
Well-
are.
Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, Ben and I are buildings, built and also building department. So I think maybe you and I can sit down with Reed and just do a deeper dive and then come back to the town board on this one.
I think what you can consider in lieu thereof, changing any processes in the building department is, again, we just have to fill the licensing review board. This is something that the licensing review board should be tasked with. If there's a complaint about a contractor who's not, adhering to what the building department's saying as far as inspections, he could potentially have his license suspended or revoked and can't do work on the island. And I think that's a good incentive to make sure they call in and have these inspections.
Yeah. I also want to get the contractor license review board, because when, people go before ZBA and, like, oh, this was done, I want to okay, who is the contractor who did this thing and now has to come before ZBA? Like, I think they need to get slapped.
So we should meet with
So,
Reed.
yes, yeah. So you and I, behind the scenes, do some legwork and then come back. CPF acquisition plan. It's in tier 2. It's with CPF. They will pick it back up again in the March meeting. So we will wait for them to come back to us. We had IA systems for town buildings on the list, but that's kind of should follow the
The needs assessment.
the
and then-
comprehensive needs assessment.
Yeah.
So that may be,
Leave it at 2.
yeah, leave it at 2. Skate park. I don't know, did we all get the letter on the skate park?
Yep.
Okay. So I think we need to probably talk to Joe and Ken. Because Ken sees more of what's going on down there.
Okay, so we have a meeting with the letter writer and.
Yes, yeah. So volunteers for that one?
Is there plans for that, or what?
No, I mean, my impression is it doesn't get used very often and it's in disrepair. So it's a little bit of a hazard, and so we should get rid of it. And I know Jim Colligan last year, I think, felt strongly about that.
He was very adamant about it.
So when the discussion was brought up, that's what prompted the letter. was that it was being looked at. So we do, so is there a need for it?
Is there another place to put it?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I
Yeah,
think it's
I was
just in
gonna
a
say.
terrible location.
Yeah.
It's like out of sight, out of mind. If someone gets hurt there, I mean, who's gonna drive by and notice? I don't know.
Yeah.
It depends on the time of day and if you're lucky. I'd rather see it in the center somewhere where there's people nearby if we have one, but, so whatever it is, it needs fixing one way or the other.
Yeah.
Can we kick this over to the rec department?
They don't think it's their purview. Because it's not, it's more of a facilities kind of thing. And they do more programming.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really maintain any of the buildings or structures. So they don't.
But they do have an in with the youth community who might be taking advantage of this.
So if we want to get information from them, we can ask them to poll their constituents and see how many people use the skate park.
Mhm.
Or if
That would be a
where
good
they would
idea.
want to see it move to.
Right,
If we're gonna
yeah,
keep
if
it.
we can even find a place to move it to.
Is there any, I know the need or the need for upgrading or whatever the case, aside from that, was there any plan to use that for something? If the skateboard was removed, skate park was removed?
Possibly, because Southbury Village Highway, property, which we want to use for community housing. We've got the impound lot back there, and then we've also got some of the septic rings and things like that, or not septic,
Drainage.
drain rings, the whatever, I can never think of the right name, but whatever, there's like huge cement rings over there.
Right, precast leaching.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so we need a place to store those. So some of it may be part of the Gruber property, especially to like the impound lot, because we need it to be fenced in. There might be a use for storage space. It's right contiguous with the highway department building, things like that. So I think, oh, and there's Ken.
Perfect.
Sorry,
You got my
I was out on the
attention.
road. I was out on the road. I just heard you mention me. Yeah, I think you're on the right track, Amber. My understanding, again, I think I was CC'd on the same letter. So I think the understanding that I've had was that this was something that Jim was talking about Colligan a while back too. I think I agree with Meg. I don't think the location is a great one from a safety perspective. I don't know the numbers. I think it would be important to hear from the rec department as to how much, maybe they have an idea how many people use it. But I could tell you that we could definitely use the space for the highway department ourselves for a myriad of things. And because of its proximity to us, it makes sense. It's also gated, so it would be an opportunity. Maybe that's an opportunity to move the impound yard if it's necessary. It's well lit. It's, not tucked back in the middle of the woods back there. I don't know. I mean, we'd have to talk about the uses for it, but I do agree that if something does come to fruition with the old highway location off of 114, we're going to need some storage for sure, because we have a lot of pieces of equipment back there that we keep on that property, in addition to all the drainage rings that we use for all our roadside drainage that we do. We sort of stockpile stuff there. So it would require a number of different spaces, and the Gruber lot being one of them as well. But believe me, I could put that space to use if need be.
So. Tier 2.
Yeah.
Moving forward, at some point it will have to get moved up, because as we need to clear out the Southbury Road property to start moving on building housing there. But
Yeah, it's all tier 2 though.
yeah,
And I'd be curious to see how much stuff we really have, not to minimize it, but I know we talked about the Gruber property and removing the bamboo.
Mhm.
And that is quite a piece of a good-sized parcel.
Mhm.
I don't know how much stuff we really have, but,
Drive back into the highway.
yeah,
building.
no, I haven't been back there in a while, but I do, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a sight to see.
you know, then some evergreens or something along the street or something, just
Yeah,
so it's,
Mhm.
the people on Bowditch are up there probably won't like any kind of highway storage up there on the street, but I would
Some kind of
presume,
screening up.
So I'm not sure what to do with that. Someone needs to pick that up if we want to move it forward, but I'm not adding it to an agenda item until someone starts
I think
yelling.
there are other things that are.
Yeah. Starting the CPF advisory group. I know, Stephen, you are working on that and making some headway.
And they're advising.
This is the group that Fred Thiel used to have, so that if we as a town have a question about anything having to do with CPF, like if we are allowed to put a well on CPF property, that would be the group that we would go to. And that group got disbanded like way before like COVID. I'm not even sure if it was functioning when I first came on the town board.
Yeah.
But it's, Stephen, if you want to, Fred, kept saying he'd get it together, he'd, get the group together. So Stephen's been spearheading, working with the other towns. So if you want to give a quick update.
Yeah, so again, Fred was all for reviving it, but it just, I guess, got put on the back burner. But in speaking to every municipality, they would want nothing more than to revive it because they're all trying, because the code is very, not the code, the law is very limited. And there isn't a lot of case law interpreting the law. So you want this advisory opinion group to be able to bounce some ideas off of and come to some consistent interpretation of the statute. So again, I reached out to every municipality. They're very enthusiastic about reforming it. And Christina, when did we propose that we were going to have our first meeting?
I would have to check. I have next Thursday.
I want to say it's the first Thursday in March that we have proposed for our first meeting.
And Stephen, you're driving this amongst all the other towns as well?
Yes.
Because, and
Who's-
Fred Thiel is not running for office again.
Correct. He's retiring.
Uh-huh.
who are you meeting with, Stephen?
No, well, it started out with the town attorney's offices, and then I not met, but I spoke with like East Hampton and Southampton. I'm sorry, can you hold on one second?
We muted you.
Sorry, I was on a call with outside counsel. So then I spoke to East Hampton and Southampton and Southold, who have their own departments of land preservation or CPF, and they have directors of those departments, and they're very anxious to have this group revived. So instead of just sitting idly by and waiting for it to happen, I chose to reach out to the individual municipalities to make it happen. And I think we'll have our first meeting the first Thursday of next month.
What was the makeup? Do you know? Stephen, what was the makeup of the previous advisory board? Any idea?
No, off the top of my head, I want to say it was chairs of the CPF and the town attorneys.
Thanks.
Yep. But again, this is just a preliminary, this isn't the first formal meeting. This is to talk about the concept again and reinvigorate it, and then look to the past on how it was ran, and we'll follow suit. So it's just to get everybody in the same spot to talk about it and revive it.
Good.
Yep.
The next item on the list was tree clearing. And there is a working group, and it's on the agenda to just get a volunteer. So when we get off of this topic and get down to that, we'll go over that. Charging stations, now we're into tier 3. Charging stations.
I think charging stations can kind of go with the needs assessment and the facility master
Okay.
plan, because if we're looking to put them at town buildings, it should probably be part of that whole process.
Okay. Another thing was retaining.
I think this was for the public, but not,
Well, I mean,
it's hard. I'm not sure if it goes to town buildings. We're
Well-
trying to get some level 3 charging stations for the public.
I said level 3, like tier 3, or is level 3 mean something
Oh,
else
it's a
in
type of
charging?
charging
Oh, okay.
station. Yeah.
Don't know anything.
It's a fast charging
Okay.
station.
are you thinking of trying to get them at like other locations in town, like the IGA and places like that? Or like, because that would be a different
I think it does have to end up on,
private-public partnership kind of deal.
if we can pull it off, but I think it has to end up on town land.
Right.
And yeah, so then your
So-
comment to needs assessment would be, we build it into
Because then you
that.
could build it into the whole project.
Yeah, okay.
So,
We had retained law firm for the code rewrite, and I put 2025, 2025 down on that, because as discussed with the comp plan analysis, that's when the code rewrite would start to happen, is after we adopt the comprehensive plan. Rewrite the employee handbook, that's an internal thing that we'll work on, and it will get presented to us to adopt once it's updated. And then non-tier items, a detailed budget review. So when I get an agenda that looks kind of clear, I will add that.
We will sit down and do that.
So we just need a date that we don't have a full agenda. There was also a discussion about, the next item was expand the planning board. And I think the thought there was to bring on a planner. Or was that
add new
yours?
members.
On a,
Something that
well,
was like a,
at least on a consulting basis, if, for a given project. But if we can solicit people that have specific expertise, career experience as planners, as environmentalists, so that we have a real expertise on the planning board. Not just concerned residents.
I'm trying to think how we would go about that, because we can't advertise.
instead of 5-member board, can you make it a 7-member board? Like,
Well, yeah, so like, we
That's-
can't
you know,
advertise to
it's-
interview to see if we can find somebody with that expertise unless we expand it.
Right.
But what if we expand it and then we can't find that kind of volunteer expertise?
Right.
So it's just, I think it's a discussion to be had. I guess we can put it on one of those work sessions where we have some room to discuss it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think it's on fire, but.
Yeah, I'm just. Island-wide groundwater modeling. I think that's another topic that we need to brainstorm.
Yeah, because this, you'd have to define the scope. What is it that you're trying to learn? Like, what is the information that you need to gain from it?
Is it a good thing?
while you're
Yes.
doing it?
Hands down. But is it expensive? Yes. But is it a good thing? Yeah.
Yeah, but it
And what
depends
is
on
the
exactly
goal?
what you're looking for.
Yeah,
Like,
what's the goal?
Of course.
So
Of course.
it needs some significant scoping before you can kind of do anything with it.
Okay, so just saying, putting these on random.
Finalized town center. What does that entail?
That is looking into a vacancy tax, basically. Yeah. I think
Comp
that's,
plan
I think
says.
that's the first thing. And I'm going to be looking for my people next week at Association of Towns to see if I can find them, who we started this conversation
Oh, that's true, yeah,
4 or 5 years ago.
because of
No,
the towns
4 years
that dealt with this, so.
Well, actually, that was the interesting thing, is it was in one of the sessions, and I'd have to go back and look at my notes. And I raised it with the people presenting, and they were not familiar with it. But then I had 5 other towns from across the state come and ask me, like, what do
Did
you
you get a good
know?
answer?
Like, what do you know? Like, can we look into this jointly? And this was in 2020, and then the pandemic hit. And so the email thread that I had was like, fell to the wayside.
Okay.
But so at AOT, I'll look to see if I can, before we go next week. And then the write-in one was fertilizer legislation. So when are you guys going to be ready to present that?
I think that's actually pretty much ready.
Because it was on, but then it got taken off.
Yeah, but then we met, we went over it. And I think, Stephen, if you're on there, I think the fertilizer legislation's good to present, right?
Yeah.
Close, right?
Okay, so I can schedule that when I
Yeah,
think good date.
correct.
I made a note in here, ready to present to town board. Okay, sounds all right. Let's see.
Okay. All right, so
Maureen, this,
you got something, something got added. on my list.
Maureen doc fee review.
Oh, right, I think I have
Oh.
that.
Well, what I know about this from the WAC side is, I guess they were concerned about what was adopted recently. And they had some suggestions as to how to improve it.
Mhm,
So I told them to put it in writing and send it to the town board.
That's perfect. That's exactly how it should go.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't think we've received anything, have we?
No, not yet.
Okay.
This was last week.
This was, okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I don't think I've seen anything unless I missed an email, which is possible.
Mhm, okay, all right. Okay, so then I will take all of this, and I have started to, which Christina probably sees from time to time, is all of a sudden there's new agendas for future meetings started. So I'm going to schedule all of this and start to drop them into the agendas on SharePoint. So,
Okay.
and then kind of keep reworking it as things come up that we have to deal with, or when things get pushed, just so that like don't overwhelm us with stuff. And even like today, I said, website will be done in 20 minutes. Last week, we didn't get to everything on the agenda. So I'll try and balance it so that like we're not here until 5 o'clock every day, every Tuesday.
I like your optimism.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. The eternal optimist.
I like it.
Okay. All right. So the next item on the agenda is tree preservation lot clearing subcommittee. This was something that,
Oh, wait, Meg.
this was something that Jim Colligan was working on, and Tim Patel is sort of chairing the subcommittee, and I know Sean Davies on it, and I'm pretty sure I'm missing somebody else. But we need a town board member or two to get up to speed and run with it.
I can, I'll volunteer.
Oh, okay. Oh. See that coming.
Great.
Because Benjamin and I
I'll fall on the sword.
I was gonna say, Benjamin and I talked about it yesterday, and because he's green options, thought maybe that would be a good fit, but if you want to take that on, reach out to Tim Patel, he'll get you all of like the information that they've worked on so far.
Yeah, who's on the committee?
Tim Patel, start with him, Sean Davies on there as well. And I do feel like I'm missing somebody, and I apologize for that.
It's Clark, I believe, on it.
Oh, Dan Clark, yes,
Jay Clark.
yeah.
And then if I may, so they proposed, like, sort of like the outline of legislation, and it was reviewed by the building department and myself, and we had some concerns about enforceability and things like that. So I have a alternative that I want to propose to the subcommittee. So whenever we have that meeting, I'll propose that alternative, Albert.
Stephen, could you send me what you have ahead of time?
Sure.
What you have? All right, thanks.
Tease, I can tell she got volunteered, so she left the room.
I'm already doing your
No.
You left the room, you got voted in.
Exactly.
No, I left the room after announcing I'm not doing it.
Yeah. So Albert is picking up that
Okay.
one, so that's good. All right, next item on
She
the
knew, that's why she's back. It was safe to come back.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is wetlands applications review and legislative changes. And so this was just a starting point to talk about, one, do we want as a town board to take back the wetlands application review process? And if we do, Stephen can tell us what the steps are in order to make that happen. And then also, the second prong to that is when do we start working on the changes themselves? And we said that we'd start to discuss the wetlands code on the 27th. But
I think we should bring it back. I think as elected officials, we're beholden to the residents, more so than the planning board. And I think it definitely warrants code changes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we need to change the code. I don't think that we need to take the review process back from the planning board. I think if we fix the code, that will solve, whatever the review process is. I think we're supposed to be a legislative body, not a permit reviewing, board. And I think that if the town board is in charge of reviewing the wetlands permits, it becomes more of a political process than it does a permit review process. And I don't think that someone should be questioning whether or not their permit is going to get a fair review depending on the election. So I think that the permit review process should stay with the board. And I think that the town board should review the code, because that's our job, is to fix the code so that other boards can do their job. That's my take on it.
The current situation, the town board used to have this privilege and pushed it over to the planning board, which has caused certain problems and some situational, some involving the legislation. I think we should bring it back to the town board just to as a service to the community and the electorate. We need to openly and fairly review these things, and the town board should have the final decision on this. But that also begs the question of where does the best expertise lie? Who should be doing this work? And I think that some combination of the zoning board, the CAC, and the planning board should be doing the work and making a recommendation to the board that the board then can decide on. I don't have the expertise to review wetlands applications. I'm just a simple country lawyer, not an environmental expert. So I think we really need to look at this and bring it back home for now. And while we still work on fixing the code has to be fixed. I mean, that's just a given underlying premise of everything that we say up here, I think. But until that happens, I think it needs to come back. As long as the expertise review.
Okay. Part of what confused me about what you just said is that you said you're not qualified to make a decision about the review of the application. So why should we be in charge of it if you need other people to give you the recommendations on how you should vote for? When I think the planning board has the expertise, they have an engineer, they have set up a very thorough review process of the application using professional services. So if you're then just going to take their recommendation and then make a decision based on the recommendation you're getting from them, I don't know that we need the extra level of the bureaucracy, or that we need, because it created chaos. So the last time we had the process that happened this way, it added a whole nother level of administrative work. It added far more ways for things to fall through the cracks, whether they be revisions to the application, whether they be updates to surveys. And so then you weren't sure if the application you were ruling on in the end was the original application or some version in between because it was very hard to keep track, which is why we tried to streamline the process so fewer things fell through the cracks. And when we did that, the planning board redesigned how they do the review using more expertise. So now they have someone who will come out and confirm at the end of the process that all of the vegetative buffers were planted according to plan. They have someone that goes out, they have they have an engineer who reviews the whole process to make sure that the application is complete in the first place. Like, I think the way it's set up now is correct. There's no other town around us where their legislative body reviews wetlands applications. And I think the problem lies in the code, not the review process that we've established.
The problem definitely lies in the code.
Yeah.
But I also, frankly, I think it lies with the planning department. I don't think there's expertise there. And I'll bring up 7 Cheekwood Avenue and the issues in the Article 78 against the town regarding that. It was mishandled. I will say that. It was mishandled, and I don't see any planning expertise that handled that application. That's my concern.
I think that I would like to see us take it back, although I would like to marry the what the planning board has been doing as far as the review and the detailed heavier review, and keep that pipeline coming to us and adopting like the resolutions that Beth Baldwin has worked on there. I like those, the way they're written. I think that they're, it's just, some tweaks that were needed that happened. But I also, we do have to fix the code. But I also think that the planning board is looking at things, much more by the code. So it's like, well, this, and, one of 7 Cheekwood Avenue is an example. One of the comments made, and we weren't, we as town board members should not be weighing in on planning board decisions while they're deliberating. But after the fact, my thought was, they said, well, there were no other alternatives presented to us. And we as a town board, when we used to review wetlands applications, we wouldn't wait for the client to say, oh, well, this is an alternative. We would say, we're not going to approve this, so you may want to go back and rethink it. I would have just said, just chop that extra, space off. You've got a dining room, but you're not supposed to have a kitchen. You've got a study that's not a bedroom. So there were certain things that I think we as a town board, we interpret it a little looser or differently, whereas the planning board is just looking at things exactly by code. So I'd like to take it back so that we insert that, our look at that, even though that's why we need to make sure the planning board looks at it, CAC looks at it to give us the recommendations. But then we, the electeds, do feel more comfortable. And then we've got to rewrite the code and then we can give it back. That's how I would like to see this play out.
I think it's just going to make it a mess. We were down a clerk, and we were already down a clerk at town hall. So it's just going to make a mess. I just think taking it back is going to make a mess. I'd rather just dive into the wetlands code and fix it. I mean, I would rather put our energy there instead of now we're going to end up having applicants that are going to fall into some chaos as we try to transition it back to the board. And then we're still going to have the same problems when we review it that planning board has now with the code, because the code's still broken. So we just have to fix the code. If we fix the code and we continue to have a problem, then take it back. But I think that the code is the core problem that we're having. You have the conflict of 129 and 133. One says zoning is 100 feet. The other one says 75 foot with a 25-foot buffer. You have all of these things that create a problem that are going to be a problem no matter what until we fix them, no matter who's reviewing.
In looking at my timeline, for us to change the wetlands code, the way I had it played out was that we would discuss it on the 27th and receive legislation back on the 12th of March. That is unreasonable.
Right.
Even me with my optimistic outlook, it knows that that is unreasonable. And then I had us reviewing it for a couple of work sessions, setting a public hearing in April, having the public hearing in May, not being able to accept that because we'd have changes that would come from the public that we'd want to discuss. So then that would be another May discussion, rejecting it probably in June, reworking it, setting another public hearing at the end of June, having a public hearing in July, and not adopting this until
Sometime
August. So like it's, and that's overly optimistic, because I do think it's going to end up having 2 public hearings, because this is such a
Yeah,
hot
there's gonna be a
button
lot
topic.
of public feedback.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And rightfully so. So for the next 6-7 months, like, I want this back in our hands.
Mhm.
I do.
I do too.
I don't, but I'm gonna be outvoted, so.
Well, should we ask Stephen to weigh in?
I was going to say, Stephen, I was going to ask Stephen to give us a timeline on what it would take in order to bring it back to the town board. And then I know Ian's in the audience. I don't know if he wants to weigh in from the planning board perspective, or you're just here to listen.
As far as the question posed to me, we can do pretty quick turnaround transferring it back to the town board. It's not a major rewrite to the wetlands legislation. So you could put it on for the next work session to discuss. I'll have something for you to look at, and then we could set it for a public hearing. I don't know if we know how many applications are pending right now, and how that would impact those, but that's the one thing we'd have to, maybe we get any applications going forward from the time of effective date of the law, and let the planning board still take care of the ones that are pending in front of them. But again, as far as my work to make this happen, it could happen in an expeditious manner to make the transfer. And then we can leave the rewrite to another day.
That's going to be huge.
Ian, can we ask you how many things are pending?
You've got one, I think, open public hearing at the moment.
We have one open public hearing. We have 2 other applications. One, we're waiting back some information from. The other one, I believe we're going to set a public hearing for this evening. Just want to remind you guys about the site plan review and the fiasco that happened after that. Planning board had developed a very nice code adopted by the town board. It was revoked during the political season, a few months before an election. And the town board took it over again as a special permit. When various applications came in that didn't have a application, you guys still don't have an application. You didn't have a fee structure, you still don't have a fee structure. And the rest of Leon, the parking at Leon has become such a mess. There were a lot of issues with the Pridman when this was being reviewed. The town board just doesn't have the capacity to do it. You just outlined a very extensive, aggressive timeline of priorities. Are you going to want to take on all these other wetland applications on top of those priorities? I'm just throwing it out there. We did we're reviewing these, as you said, by the letter of the law. We're being very specific. If you start weighing in, I've watched the kids bicycling down the street. There's nothing to do with wetlands. If you start looking at all these strange aspects and then factoring that into your review, I just be very cautionary of as much as of a lawsuit coming from an applicant who's saying you didn't follow the letter of the law. So just by listening to constituencies who were promoting ideas during your campaign, just be very careful with putting those into action when you review these things.
Thank you. This will, if taking it back, will require us to review some, written up legislative law, and then it will go to a public hearing. So on topics like this, since there will be a public hearing, I am inclined not to to open this up to the public and turn this into a public hearing. If someone has thoughts, they can send us emails, they can call any one of us. But I'd like to keep it so that a public hearing is when the public can weigh in on whether or not we should
Makes sense.
taking this. I still have PTSD from short-term rentals where every work session was a public hearing.
I'm having that with comp plan. It's kind of brutal.
Yeah, so I'm not shutting down public input on this, but I want to contain it to where I think it's appropriate, and that would be at a public hearing. It also is a time when everyone would be tuning in and saying, okay, this is the public hearing, and then you can hear the back and forth from the public. And so it's like if you've missed a work session and you've just missed a point that then someone else didn't get to hear and then get to respond to. So that's kind of my thinking on that. Of course, people can send us letters, emails, phone calls, stop us at the IGA, et cetera. So. So that was today's wetlands application review, and then we will continue to schedule in the legislative changes. Okay, so that topic, we go on to the open town board seat. And unfortunately, I notified all 11 candidates who we interviewed before the meeting, left messages for some, talked to some. We could not come to an agreement on the 5th town board seat, which is unfortunate. So our next step, and I'm not sure if we have agreement on this, but I want to talk about the process, is going to a special election. And the way we do that, and Stephen, chime in if I have the process not quite right, is we would have to pass a resolution that says that we could not come to an agreement on appointing, because our local law says that we appoint open positions, that we could not come to an agreement. And then we have to send a resolution up to the governor's office requesting that she allow us to have a special election. And we don't know if she will grant that or not grant it, but one of the things that I think is good about it is, one, I feel like the public should be able to weigh in and, elect who we have for the 5th seat. If we had appointed, we could only appoint that person through the end of 2024. If we have a special election, they will be elected for the remainder of my old term, and it will go through the end of 2025. So rather than having somebody come on, if we had agreed, end of February, through the end of the year, it's a year and a half, depending on what the timetable is. If the governor says that we are allowed to run a special election, we then go to the Board of Elections, who will then give us a calendar. They have not given us any information as to how that calendar lays out, but it does, involve, the passing of petitions. I don't know how they factor in if there's a primary, if that enters into the equation. Then, dates for, when people would be able to request absentee ballots, when they would be due that. There would still be the 10 days of early voting, or 9 days of early voting and 1 day of election voting. So that would be the process. So
A couple of things. Well, first I want to thank the 11 people that put their hand up
I did.
and came in to talk to us.
You're here.
Yeah, we had some great candidates.
Yeah. But also, I think there's a step missing, because in order to send a resolution to the governor, we have to vote on a resolution.
Yes, so we would
And
have
if
to put
that fails,
yes, we'd have to put a resolution on for the 26th, which is our next town board meeting. And so if it fails, then there's no mechanism to get to the governor's office.
well, the mechanism is there is a mechanism. Someone can bring an Article 78 proceeding to compel us to fill the seat according to the town code. And whoever brings that Article 78 has to pay for it. And the Article 78 will say, fill the seat, and then if you don't fill the seat, the governor, please come help us.
Correct. Yeah. No, I just want to, that's, yes, that's.
The other thing is that if we do proceed with some sort of special election in some way, shape, or form, there's a cost to that, to the town. And Stephen did some research on this and found out it's approximately $30,000 to run the special election. And there we are. It seems like a lot of money to spend on something like this.
And that is the cost of democracy. And we also have money from a town board salary that has not been utilized so far until the time that they're appointed. But I strongly go back to that's the cost of democracy.
Okay.
In November, there is a presidential election. It's going to be a turnout, and I think that's a fair time to wait, to have a fair turnout of the voting individuals on Shelter Island. It will be here to vote in November, and I think it's an honest choice then, a choice of who they really want to sit here at the table, not us.
Well, it's not us, but it's up to the public. It's their civic duty to turn out for an election, even if it's a local election. And there are absentee ballots and there is early voting. And
It's an off-season election, Amber, you
Yeah,
know
but
that.
the
I mean,
turnouts
you're
are always
arguing
the
against
same.
it, but you know the
the turnouts, yeah,
situation.
I know the turnouts.
November is going to be a
but-
tremendous turnout. It's a presidential election. It's a more honest.
Voted the electorate in November. Well, if you call an election for March or April or May, you're gonna get a quarter of the electorate coming out to vote. And to me, that's just not fair. But I'd rather wait the few months until November when everyone's coming to vote in the presidential anyway and get a full vote of the electorate for this open seat. If we can't agree. Hoping
Yeah,
you'll
but
change
you're-
your mind.
That I'll change my mind?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm pushing for a special election. I believe in that. And
Okay.
if people, like, if they're only going to turn out in November? Like
Well,
you're presuming that
statistically,
people,
the
like, people
turnout
who
in a
care are going to
presidential
vote.
election is much,
Yeah.
that's not true. People, we
November is
we
going
have
to be a
people-
big
we
election.
have people who live in Florida in the winter. We have people who are away during the cold months. We have people who are second homeowners. They'll all come out in November to vote in the general, and they are not going to come out to vote in April. Look at the historical record on the voting patterns. It's pretty glaringly obvious that pushing an election in an odd month, it's not even an off-season, an off-cycle election, it's just a special election called whatever, you're gonna get very small numbers when it comes to the turnout. And that's just not fair. Let's wait a couple of months until November when everyone will be out to vote anyway.
I disagree. It's
Okay. Yeah, I accept that.
on the voter to.
I accept that.
If
I don't
they
agree with
care,
it, but I accept it.
if they care, they will chime in, they will vote. But
So the process is, we have let the public know that we are at an impasse.
yes,
So we
We
have
just did
to
that.
do a resolution or something. That's be an official action.
No, no, as far as not fill, because town law says that the town board may fill by appointment. And if there's an impasse, there's no resolution necessary. However, to ask the governor to do something, we need an affirmative resolution to ask her to call for the special election. So if there's an impasse, then again, for the special election, then nothing happens.
Okay.
And it would just default to being on the ballot in November.
Got it. Okay, when do you want to schedule this vote?
we have a meeting on February 26th. Stephen, if you could draft the resolution and we will vote on it that day.
Correct. So you want me to draft it in the affirmative, asking the governor to call for the special election, and then you'll have a roll call vote?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, please. This one, since it's not going to end up with a public hearing, I will open it up to the public to any comments since it's a resolution? Okay. Next item. Next item on the agenda is, we're back to the IMA with Suffolk County Planning Commission.
We just put a nail in this.
Yes, please.
Yes, I still believe that, no harm, no foul in signing this,
I agree.
but I don't think that we've been able to convince the two of you. So,
We live without it. I'm not sure what we're giving up, but that's. I mean, if you want to give me some time, I'll look at it again, but we've been fine without it, and I'm not sure of the unintended consequences. It was kind of thrust on us, kind of out of nowhere, and I certainly have not been able to map out all the possible unintended consequences of missing.
We're not giving up anything because we can always choose to refer something. What the Suffolk County Planning Commission is telling us is that these are the list of things that they're not going to review because they don't think it's significant enough to meet their criteria. So please stop sending them to us because we don't want to have to keep sending back the form letter because it's taking up our time. It's the Planning Commission is initiating it because they're saying these things we're not going to review. So they're giving us a way to not waste our staff's time sending them things that they're not going to review and, saving their staff time because now their staff doesn't have to return the form letter saying this is local jurisdiction, we're not going to review it.
And
That's all this is.
And that's nice for them. I want to figure out what's in
Okay.
it for us and what we're giving up.
I feel the same way as Ben does on this. I'm afraid of something falling through the cracks, even though you've explained it, Meg.
The Planning Commission explained it.
Right. If you want to move forward, it might not change my mind, but I did, a review of the conditions where it has to be, the boundary of any village or town, Deering Harbor,
those have to
the boundary of an existing county, state, or park. We have county and state parks on Shelter Island.
and that has to go.
Go through all those things and somebody do an overlay map. If I can see visually an overlay map of Shelter Island, of where those locations are. I'm not going to say, well, that'll make me go for it, but I would like to see that.
So you want an overlay of what goes to them or what doesn't, what wouldn't
What
go?
goes, what would go? The county roads on Shelter Island, the water bodies, anything within so many feet of the water bodies in our estuary. I think it's going to encompass a lot of Shelter Island. If you start to do that and overlay it on a map, that's my concern.
The only point is,
And therefore you're arguing we don't need this because most of Shelter Island is covered.
What's that?
So you're arguing that we don't need it because most of Shelter Island is going to end up being covered once
Pretty
that
much.
map is made.
yeah, but it doesn't matter because it's what we're sending to them. They're saying, I don't want to see a 20-foot side yard ZBA variance sent to me because, there's a preserve 500 feet away because it doesn't have county-wide impact. So we're not going to review this. Stop sending them to us. It's a very simple request on their part that kind of makes sense.
There may be things that, there's an option to do a custom agreement with them. What they sent us is the boilerplate agreement. So at the very least, we need to do an analysis of their boilerplate to see if there are 1, 2, 3, 4 items that are special to Shelter Island that shouldn't be in their boilerplate agreement, rather than just sign what they sent us.
Christina, how many of these did we send last year?
Oh, they all came back. Yeah.
100%
No,
came back.
no, I just, how many got sent last year?
How many zoning board applications there were? Roughly 15, I would guess, wild guess.
Okay, I want to do some quick math on here because I'm kind of done with this topic.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was 11 hours of clerk time. To do like this overlay map, I think that that's going to be a fair number of hours for saving 11 hours each year.
I'm not saying do that. I'm just saying, yeah, okay. That,
County has that map available on their website, Suffolk County Planning Commission.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So, you know, I just want to be a little careful here rather than rush to sign this. You fooled me once on something, and I don't want it to happen again. So let's look at it.
Okay, well, I don't, like, this is not the hill I want to die on today. So I'm, like, if we don't sign it, that's fine. We'll just continue sending them. Like, I don't, it doesn't matter that much. It was a request that came from the county. It could save our staff some time. I don't think we're losing anything because no one's actually doing an environmental review. They're looking at it and saying this doesn't fit, check.
It gets a desk review and they kick it back to us.
Yeah, so we're done. I will just let them know that we're not going to sign. And they can try again another year. So, okay, Kim Nolan, you had a hand up? If you're talking, you're on mute. You're still on mute? Or maybe you stepped away since you put the hand up? Is there anyone else?
It's too quiet.
I know, it is too. Okay, we'll do board member reports and then back to the public if there's any public comment that needs to be addressed.
What do we have? We had CHP.
We had Community Housing Board.
Okay.
Is it Conservation Advisory Council?
Oh, Albert was there for that.
Yes. Let me just look.
so
We're just looking to see who met last week to have reports. So yeah, WMAC met, CAC met, Community Housing Board met, CPAC met.
WMAC we kind of touched on pretty much the status of their meeting. They did approve the Pescad mooring relocating from West Neck Creek to Cuckles Harbor. And they gave a separate location to him near where he requested, but where there's more swing room for his boat. The Pike Dock application, kind of premature, still waiting for further info from the Army Corps of Engineers on that application. And basically, they're continuing to work on the dock moratorium. Oh, Bo Payne gave an update to the board itself on the conditions on the water over the summer. But at the end, he made a suggestion that he would think it would be beneficial to develop a policy and procedure structure that can be used as an enforcement tool rather than modify the actual code. And then the code will refer to the policy and procedure. That was just his input.
Is WMAC going to pick that up to implement that? Or he's going to come back?
I don't, the board, I guess the committee will consider it.
Just thinking what the disposition would be.
And then the CAC meeting met Roxanne, who wants to jump in and be kind of a writer of information to give to people, somehow facilitate and give information to the residents. They talked about that for a while, a variety of issues, invasive, clearing trees, fertilizer, pesticide use, etc. And then the CAC reviews the 7 preserves that the town owns, makes reports regarding their condition and concerns for follow-up to the town board. The question that I had, I guess it's for Stephen. Last work session, we talked about the 100 square foot exemption. Are you there, Stephen?
Yep.
I'd rather look at you than talk to the screen.
Okay.
If you don't mind. I was looking at the Ram's Head Inn applications that are now before the planning board. And the discussion that we had, that you were talking about a walkway, is that for the Ram's Head Inn? Is that walkway a footpath or is that a catwalk?
I'm not sure your question. It's a walkway, so it is a
Structure.
it's a structure in the general sense. It's not a structure in the zoning sense.
It's an elevated walkway.
It's an elevated walkway.
Yes.
My issue with it is that we were talking about the 100 square foot landing to that catwalk, but actually the catwalk is 5 feet by 70 feet. That's 350 square feet of a catwalk.
They modified it. They modified the request in the application.
It's 5 by 20.
It's 5 by 20. It's 100 square feet.
Just for the Ram's Head Inn,
Yes.
not for Ram Island LLC, Big Ram LLC. That's where the one that they modified that application for a 5 by 4 by 25 or whatever it was. I thought that was on the neighboring property. That Ram's Head Inn had the 5 by 70 foot catwalk.
No, they're seeking a 100 square foot exemption on both. And not exceeding it, is my understanding. Ian's here.
I mean, the applications are split. There's 2 applications and the resolutions call out the catwalk for Ram's Head Inn. And the Bennett, what was the Bennett dock is now the Big Ram LLC. They have the 4 by 25 foot walkway from the staircase to the dock.
Okay.
So my question is that catwalk still there, 5 by 70 feet at the Ram's Head Inn?
No.
Or are they gonna walk down the hill? Is it a footpath?
It's going to be a hybrid footpath and walkway. They're going to use the walkway. It's going to be a 100 square foot walkway. And then the rest will be a footpath. Is my understanding. Again,
It's a 100 square foot landing because a resolution or what their application says is a 100 square foot landing with a catwalk, a 5 by 70 foot catwalk to the dock.
That's the original application. They've modified it, and they're not requesting that.
But it's
70 foot.
on the planning board website as it stands. I don't see any modification. It's still there as the original. That's
Yeah.
my question.
Yeah, again, it's an action that's pending in front of the planning board. So I haven't scrutinized exactly what they're submitting. And I understand they made an application, the building inspector reviewed it, issued a denial letter, and they submitted a application to the planning board to avail themselves of the 100 square foot exemption. That's all I know.
I see a 5 by 70 foot catwalk. I don't know
Application calls for a 4 by 25
for Big Ram LLC, Ram's Head Inn
for the Ram's Head Inn. The
LLC.
application says requesting a permit to construct a 4 foot by 25 foot ramp leading to the dock approved by the town board resolution number 90 dated 1/31/23. It doesn't call for a 70 foot. Looking at the application that's on the planning board's website. Right there. That's the request.
They did attach those ones with it.
They attach the old plans as well, so you can see the
They
change.
attached the DEC plans.
DEC,
right.
It has the original ask, which the DEC approved. They're now asking for substantially less.
Right. Okay. So, but this is the request that the application is requesting. A new
All right, this
application.
is 90? Resolution 90? Is that what you said?
No, resolution 90 was the original resolution that
original.
approved the dock, not
Right.
the walkway. This is the new
This was
request for this modification, which is
Okay.
the 4 by
All right.
25 ramp.
The only other question that I had, well, maybe not the only other question, I'll take that back, is when I was on the board previously, as you know, Amber, wetlands applications always went to the ZBA for review.
Not the ZBA. CAC?
Yeah, they did. They went,
They went to planning board.
It went to
planning board
CAC and
CAC.
planning board.
but the
Not
ZBA weighed in on a wetlands application.
No, it was always a planning board memo that we received.
There was one, the one that stands out in my mind, probably the last one. A gentleman down on Montclair Colony had a rowing shell that was long, and he wanted to put it in a shed.
That
And
was
the
different.
ZBA weighed in on the
But
setback.
they didn't weigh in on the wetlands, they weighed in on the front yard setback that they were
It went to,
encroaching at.
yeah.
They,
I
It
was on
wasn't a
with you then.
wetlands review.
Yeah, it went to ZBA.
they weighed in
first.
on setbacks. That's what I'm saying, Meg.
No,
I'm not saying,
what happened at the time was ZBA said, we don't want it going into the front yard setback. And so they told the applicant, get it out of the front yard setback. They pushed it into the wetland setback. And I remember telling Doug Matz at the time, we're not going to approve that. And he said, that's going to be your problem, not mine. And so they ruled on it.
No, I get
and
that.
It came to us, but they didn't.
but are these situations with the Rams Head LLCs, are they within the setbacks?
Not ZBA setbacks.
No, they're not?
I don't think so. But Stephen?
Shouldn't these have gone to the ZBA? That's my question, Stephen.
No.
Why? Are they within the setbacks, side yard setbacks?
Because a walkway is not a structure that needs to adhere to zoning setbacks. If you look at the definition of structure in our zoning code, it specifically exempts walkways. And the building department decided that, again, in their reading of the code, that it does not require any ZBA relief because it's not a structure that needs to hold setbacks.
So a walkway is not a structure,
Correct.
or it is a walkway can be a structure, but a walkway is not just a footpath. That's what you're saying.
No, what I'm saying is, like, in general parlance, yes, a walkway is a structure. However, in our specific zoning code, the definition of structure explicitly exempts walkways from being a structure that needs to hold a setback.
Okay, all right. So a walkway it's not a footpath. It's an
No,
actual structure.
Correct.
Okay, that's what you're saying, okay?
When we look at the wetlands code and we look after we get comprehensive plan done and we're looking at all zoning stuff, let's take a look at that.
Yeah, I mean, I just think previously, my previous experience, when we got a denial letter, it was a page and a half, 2 pages. It described what the project application was about, what was existing. There was a title search done. If there were any covenants or deed restrictions, we knew about those on the project. Now it's a few line paragraph. Was that the building department's decision to do that?
We
Change that system?
it was the building department and myself that decided to streamline the building permit. And again, that's how it's done in all other municipalities. There was a lot of extraneous information included in the denial letters that had nothing to do with the New York State Uniform Fire Prevention and Building Code and the zoning code. So that stuff was removed. It also, with all that information, it also made writing notices, public notices for the Zoning Board of Appeals very hard and very confusing for the public. So we streamlined the process.
I guess my only concern is that by streamlining the process, we've lost some controls along the way, but enough said.
I'll be glad to meet with you and discuss it further. And if we have to change it, we'll change it, but I don't see how we lost anything.
Okay, so to continue going around the table, anything else on CAC or anything else on your plate?
No, that's it. Thank you.
I had a comprehensive plan on Friday, and we wrapped up all of the chapters that are in this room. So all the way through chapter 10, the utility, sustainability, and resilience chapter. We have a meeting on the 20th where we're going to go over chapter 11, which is kind of a summary of all the action items. So that is hopefully going to be our last meeting before we send all of the edits to the consultants so they can update the draft. And from there, the consultants will do an update. It'll come back to the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee. We'll look it over, make sure that all the changes that we recommended be made were made. And then from there, the CPAC will kick the draft to the town board, and then it'll be in the town board hands to review and then set the public hearings and go through the process of adoption. So that's where we're at in the process. So hopefully our last meeting for a while will be on the 20th. And we'll have another draft to send out to the public soon. That was my comp plan update. And then the Fit Center has received new equipment. They were able to install it all yesterday. So maybe once the snow is over, if you get a chance to go to the Fit Center, there are some treadmills, a new bike, a new ARC trainer, just replacing some of the equipment that has gotten worn down and no longer functioning. So there's some nice new stuff in there. The Health and Wellness Alliance is working on putting together a kindness day that will hopefully happen sometime in the summer, maybe. So they're reaching out to different organizations and groups around the island to get some ideas on whether or not people would be interested in participating. But it's essentially just kind of a day where everyone can have some little kindness that they do for the community or for people who come into their business, things like that. So it's in the early stages of brainstorming, but once we have some more solid dates and an idea of when it'll take place, then we'll put it out in the reporter. Also brainstorming some ideas on different ways to just kind of spread the word on all the acts of kindness that happen in our community on a very regular basis that really do go unsung, that really make a difference in a lot of people's lives. Like little things, just like when some people deliver Meals on Wheels, they'll also take the people's trash because it's obviously they have trouble getting out of the house, and that's something that becomes a problem. If you can't get rid of your garbage, then it builds up and so there are some people who are kind enough that when they deliver the meals, they also take the trash, and that's not something that's part of the job description. So, highlighting little things like that happen all around the island, it's really nice. And so the Health and Wellness Alliance is working on kind of putting together a project that'll highlight all those different things that happen around the community and just try to get everybody involved in a little way. And so as that kind of comes to fruition, we'll get the word out and let everybody know when that's going to happen, but it'll probably happen towards the summer.
Maybe it'll stimulate some competition.
That would be nice.
Who would do nicer? Who could do the most?
Who's going to be nicer than who? So that was something that I was part of a discussion for this weekend. That was really kind of exciting and fun. I think those were my two big things. I just had a meeting about the fertilizer legislation that will come before the board soon. Just kind of trying to hash out ideas. That's something that the WAC was working on. And also with, a few key players in the community who understand fertilizer legislation and application. And so that'll be moving forward. And that's it. I have more committee meetings and stuff this week and next week. So that's where I got.
I was mostly an alternate. I mean, we had WMAC yesterday that got canceled, but I was with you on the
Community Task
CHP.
Force, yeah.
So I'll let you take that one.
Okay. ADU +1 update. We are still pretty much full. We are in our applications. So the number was $2 million, $125,000 per. We have the 16 applications, but New York State and working with CDC-LI is working with the state, there's another round of funding opening up. And so we are going to put a letter in to help CDC-LI hopefully get another round. Initially, they were saying, perhaps you should only ask for 1 million. But I was talking to Liz yesterday and it's like, why not ask for 2? Like, we are in the lead of any of the towns that received it on getting this money allocated to projects. So,
Let's take it.
and there's some applications that like got pushed to the side, and then also people like, no, don't even bother starting the application process because we don't have any money right now. So if we have money, then it's worth it for these people to go ahead and do the work. And it should be, if it's going to come out, it would be sometime this summer, and hopefully there'd be some groundbreaking on some of the ADUs that are, in process that might spur other people to say, hey, this is really happening, like, let's go for it. So, I have a letter of support for CDC-LI's application that I will send out later today. We finish before 4, if not tomorrow. But anyway, so that was exciting news. They are also, the Community Housing Board is also working on the floor plans. So they looked at a bunch of floor plans and they've started to curate it down to a smaller group for us to look at. So they're going to continue working on it. And so hopefully in early March, they will come to us, the town board first, and say, hey, these are like the ones that we're looking at. Style-wise, size-wise is a little bit already constrained because we've already gone preliminarily to the health department to say, what can we do on, 69 Manwaring Road? What can we do at the Southbury Road property? So we're a little bit constrained, but they will, does this look like it would fit into the community? And so we can take a look at it. It'll be the first look for us, and then do some sort of public meetings where the public, we can put them up on boards, places, and say, hey, come on in, take a look, talk to us, what are your thoughts? So moving along on that front. I think I'd mentioned earlier that we just need to get the attorney who's going to help us through the RFP process. Hopefully I can get that signed this week. So, and we also are going to talk to another law firm that might be able to help us with the community housing, the zoning piece, because the attorney that we're working is very specialized, has worked with a lot of municipalities on getting the RFP process. That's her area of expertise. So now we're looking for somebody who has the zoning expertise we might need for the Southbury Road property, because that's the one that we have to deal with to figure out how to put 6 units on.
Yeah.
So, and that was it for Community Housing Board.
It's moving quickly, which is so far.
It's moving quickly and it's moving glacially. So, but at least it finally feels like there's some momentum going forward, which has taken a while. So on that note, Kim, it looks like you're unmuted.
Thank you. Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much, because I've had what they call unstable internet this afternoon, and I'm afraid I missed some really important things. But quickly, I would just like to say that I heard something about you would be going to take the wetlands decisions back. And I think that the town board is going to have a quick hearing on that. And I think that every person I've spoken to who's a resident involved in community action or affairs or civic interest would be so delighted to see that. I just wanted to say that. I mean, the discussion this afternoon was just indicative of the craziness when, there was a town board hearing that made a decision regarding an applicant's dock that later the planning board is just going to reverse through a redefinition of the 100 square foot setback, which, is totally indicative. And I think that one councilman spoke
Wait,
to.
let me just stop you there, Kim. They're not doing a reinterpretation of the 100 square foot exemption. I guess there's still confusion out there. The process for the 100 square foot exemption used to be, if you wanted to take advantage of it, you went into the building department and told them what you were going to do. And they, on the inside cover of your folder on every property in the building department, would write down a note that you were taking advantage of your 100 square foot exemption. So it's not a reinterpretation. It's a way to try and formalize the process so that it gets documented somewhere that that has happened. Because in the past, we've had applications come to us and there'd be part of a wetlands application that would say, well, this is all in the wetlands and we know we need approval, but this piece over here, we want to take advantage of our 100 square foot exemption. By rights, they were allowed to do that, but then we'd say, well, wait, there's this little like building shed over here in the wetlands. Like, is that already, have you already taken advantage of 35 square feet? And so there was, to try and find out whether or not it was post zoning law or wetlands law, it was hard to determine. So we're just trying to formalize the process that someone is in fact taking advantage of that exemption that they are allowed by right, and then having it documented someplace. So that's what they're doing. There's not a reinterpretation, it's just documentation.
Okay, so, I'm not gonna go on and on because it's been a really long meeting, and I, of course, have an answer to that, which is you guys just decided this at a meeting that the Big Ram LLC couldn't have a structure called a catwalk, but now suddenly it's going to happen. And the only reason I'm even pursuing this is just because those two LLCs are run by the same commercial entity, and it's going to funnel the people off of one dock onto another property. Okay, that's what's really happening. I apologize for continuing, and I want to give you a compliment next, which is that I think it's all been really great, and I think the people working on the comprehensive plan are doing a wonderful job, and I really look forward to seeing the next draft. Thank you so much for listening to me and letting the meeting go on longer so I could speak. I really do appreciate it, Amber. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you. Earlier I saw Lily Hoffman had her hand up, but I do see Kim Bondstrom, you have yours up. So Lily, if you could turn your video on if you want to speak, or maybe it's already been taken care of. But Kim?
Yes, hi, thank you. I wanted to speak about this streamlined procedure that was confected by the town attorney and the Ian McDonald. And Albert asked this question, what do we lose from that? One of the things you lose from it is that the CAC has been cut out of the process.
Again, for a 100 square foot exemption, the CAC never weighed in. No one weighed in. It was done through the building department.
Well,
So we're trying to put in a process that had no light shed on it whatsoever.
but this is not simply a record-keeping change. This is a procedural change. This was, again, denial from the building department. It would always go to the CAC. It would always go to the planning board. And then it would come to the town board. And what?
Not in that instance.
I'm sorry?
Not if someone was just requesting 100 square foot exemption.
Well, give me an example.
This is a new condition, really. The CAC always heard any wetlands application.
Absolutely.
This isn't a wetlands application.
It is.
I mean, it's been put in, but it's only to bring it to the attention.
Because we don't have an application for 100 square foot exemption.
Which is something we
Just
should.
like we don't have an application for a site plan review.
Well,
So these are things.
let me ask you a question.
So it's not even a wetlands application. It's like not asking for approval. It's like, does this rise to the level of a wetlands application? No, therefore you get your 100 square foot exemption, and we've noted it on the record.
All right, let me give you a hypothetical. Let's suppose that the Rams Head Inn makes an application. They want to put a pump out station in the 100-foot buffer. Is anybody going to say we need to do a SECRA review there? Or are we just going to let them do it because it's a 100-foot exception? Or let's say they want to put a meth lab there.
I think there are other regulations that would prohibit a meth lab in the front lawn of the Rams Head Inn. Along with like a pump out station, there's other regulations that come with that. Typically, a 100 square foot exemption is I'd want to put a fire pit in, and I have nothing else in that area. And so the building department would say, sure, you haven't used it, or you have nothing intruding in that area. You can have a 10 by 10 fire pit, and they would just sign off on it. This is just a way to formalize the process of saying, hey, I'd like that fire pit. I'm just demonstrating to you that I don't have another 100 square foot something in this area. So, sign off on it. Let me have a record. That's all this is doing. Otherwise, these wouldn't even come to any board.
It's doing far more than that. It's not simply, a record-keeping thing. It's avoiding the participation of the CAC. It's avoiding SECRA review. In the case of the Rams Head Inn, that's an inn, that's a hotel under the Town's Code, Chapter 60. That's a Type 1 SECRA designation.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just say one thing. If we decide not to go forward with this procedure and say, oh, like we're implementing something we shouldn't be, then we go back to what we've been doing, and tomorrow the applicant can go over to the building department and ask for their 100 square foot exemption, and that's done.
Wait a minute.
So we're trying to make it a more transparent and trackable procedure.
Well, there's nothing transparent about the way that this happened. Amber, you met with the Rams Head Inn and Costello Marine. Then you got together with Stephen Kiley, and then Stephen Kiley went to the planning board. That's not transparent. That's backroom bargaining.
No, because the other advice that I could have given the applicant at the time, and I already had this plan before talking to the applicant, is we're going to document this in a way that it's trackable. So my meeting could have been, why don't you just take yourself over to the building department and ask for your 100 square foot exemption?
Well,
and that's not the conversation that I had.
They asked for a wetlands permit. That was the application. And then the town attorney, it's on the website. It's a wetlands application. And then the town attorney met with Reed Karen, and he met with Ian McDonald, and he gave them his interpretation. Now, the planning board has its own attorney. And if Reed Karen wants legal advice, he can ask for it. All right, but the town attorney has gone rogue.
Yeah. We'll definitely take those comments into account.
They weren't addressed to you, Stephen. It was addressed.
I'm just.
But we'll take a look at it. I mean, it's all stuff that needs to be addressed when we look at the wetlands code.
Well, but again, you've implemented a new procedure which bypasses the CAC. It's not simply a record keeping. It's not simply writing something on a file folder.
Well, we disagree, and we will take that into consideration as we move forward.
The CAC never reviewed the 100.
No,
Square foot.
nobody did.
Nobody
Reviewed it except the building department.
Nobody knew about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but thank you. We will, as we move forward looking at the wetlands code, we need to consider all of this.
Okay, can you give me an example of somebody that invoked the 100 square foot exception and evaded review? Just one example of that ever happening before.
I would have to ask the building department because don't know about them. They happened over at the building department.
Yeah, but you just pronounced that nobody ever reviewed.
Until we looked at a later wetlands application and someone had already had a structure on that looked as if it fit the 100 square foot exemption or less. And we needed to take that
understand.
into consideration when they were requesting something to not be considered as part of their wetlands application.
It's my understanding also the building department keeps a list of those exemptions. So it can.
We can get that.
The building department.
Well, again, Amber, you've pronounced that nobody's ever had a 100-foot exception reviewed before, but you're changing the process to eliminate that review.
So we're changing the process to
So
incorporate a
it
review.
gets documented.
So historically, there has never been a review. No, the CAC, the planning board, the town board never reviewed a request for a 100 square foot exemption. It was purely done by the building department. Someone would come in and say, hey, I want to put a 10 by 10 gazebo in my front yard. And they'd say, okay, you don't have anything else in there, so we can let you do that because it's 100 square feet and you're allowed that. And they'd make a note in the folder. Or someone would say, hey, I got this playground I want to put, or I have a fire pit. That's typically how it would be. The only time it really would get taken into consideration in a wetlands review is when someone's saying, hey, I'm building this house and I have a 10 by 10 foot area of the foundation that encroaches. Can I use my 100 square foot exemption for that? That's the only other time that it would get reviewed as part of a wetlands application. Otherwise, it was totally in the building department. This is trying to create a method for some form of review should someone come to the building department with just a 100 square foot exemption for something like a shed or a gazebo or a walkway.
All right, let's take another example. You've got somebody that already has a pre-existing non-conforming structure in the vegetative buffer. All right? The town attorney pronounced that land use law says that that's grandfathered, and you can't remove it. That's half of land use law. The other half of it is you can't expand non-conforming use. So if somebody's has already used the 100 square feet, they're going to use claim a new 100 square feet. That's an expansion of the use in the vegetative buffer.
That's inaccurate.
I'm not talking to you, Stephen.
Okay. Thank you, Kim.
I was going to say, yeah, I mean, at that point, I would take it, that would be a legal question that we would consult with counsel.
Well, and you might also want to take a vote among the other members of the board as to whether they want to implement this new procedure, which cuts out the CAC. This should not be ruling by fiat or autocratic, behavior. That should be put to a vote of the town board.
I did present it to the town board at a work session, and it was unanimous that they were supportive of the new procedure.
That was because it wasn't, it was a work session. There was no public input. It was
There was public input.
it was your interpretation only.
It's
an internal procedure.
What does that mean?
all right.
It's just something, it's how we operate. Like I sign letters and send things out and we talk about, employee things internally that just policies, procedures. So
you're dictating a new procedure for the planning board, the CAC, the building department. That's not internal, paperwork.
okay, well, we could repeal what we're doing and just turn it back to the way it was. I don't know if that's really I don't think that's in the best interest of the public.
Okay.
What is it you're going to repeal?
The process that you were
process.
protesting.
Yes, exactly.
Well, since you never formally enacted it, how are you going to repeal it?
It
Well,
doesn't
just
have to be
Stop
formally
moving
enacted.
forward.
It's not
Yeah.
part of local law. It's policy and procedure, not local law.
Yeah. So Kim, we're not going to change it. But we will take it under advisement as we look at the whole wetlands code.
You're not going to have a public hearing on it. You're not going to solicit a vote from the other members of the town board.
Anybody want to change what we decided on last week?
I mean, if we could keep it status quo, we don't have to make any changes whatsoever, or we can move forward with the procedure that we're putting in place. Either way, I'm fine with it. But if it's going to be a problem and people are going to argue the
Mhm.
fact that we're trying to put a procedure in place, then we'll just go back to the status quo. I don't,
Yeah,
I'm fine with
I'm
that.
honestly trying to make things better.
yeah.
I mean, that was the whole point.
And it's
But Kim,
good governance.
Not done.
Stephen, it's okay. I think, Kim, we've gone back and forth enough on this. I see Lily has her hand up and Pam has her hand up, so I am going to move on.
Thank you
I
for
not to
your,
put time limits on people, but I think you've made your point. Thank you.
thank you.
Lily?
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, quick question. I'd like to know if you can clarify, you and Meg have both spoken about the comprehensive plan. When are we, the public, going to get a look at the entire revision of the document?
So Lily, you will get, and the rest of the public will get, a copy of the revised document after the consultants have done it, and it has gone to the comp plan committee, and they have signed off on the fact that the recommendations that we wanted made were made. And when the CPAC kicks it to the town board, it will also go out to the general public.
Well, thank you. As a former member of CPAC, I would like to see it before, at the same time as CPAC members, because and secondly, there have been 6 or 7 or 8 months in some cases. I personally was witness very upfront to all the discussions, and I have absolutely no idea that I would agree with what the rest of the people on the CPAC currently are saying was decided back 4 months ago when I was there, or 5 months ago when I was there, or even 3 months ago when I was there. So we really need to have eyes on the revision. And secondly, this is brief, we've asked multiple times for a redlined copy so that we can see the actual changes that have been made. This is the easiest thing to do, unless there are reasons, political reasons one doesn't want to do it. Thank you.
Right, so
I was gonna say, there's no
just
political
gonna
reasons we
address a
don't
few
want to
things
do.
here. We are not going to release the draft to the public until the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee has looked over what we get back from the consultant to make sure that the consultant accounted for all of our recommendations. I don't want to give the public a draft of something that then the committee looks at and says, you know what, they forgot X, Y, and Z. Let's go back to the consultants, have them fix it, get it back to the committee looks at it again, okay, now it looks good, or oops, nope, still missed this. I don't want 5 different drafts going out to the public. So once the committee looks at the draft, decides that they've incorporated everything that we requested be incorporated, and it is complete, and the committee is okay with what we have, then it will go to the town board, and the town board will put it on the website for all the world to see. You chose to leave the committee, so you don't have that option to get it with the committee. You made that choice. So now it's just when the public gets it, you get it too.
And will we have, and thank you, and when we get it, when we finally get it, what options will we have to comment as to whether it followed the changes that we witnessed or were participating in?
You have a public hearing process.
Yeah, that's when the public
So we
hearing.
have to wait after the town board goes through chapter by chapter. We're going to then have to wait to comment to August when you're trying to rush it through for September so you can get into the grant cycle. I think you really need to think a little bit about when the public will have access to the document and give us a chance to adequately take these 300 or 400 pages and respond to it.
Okay, as I stated earlier, when we were going through the timeline, I'm hopeful that by mid-April is when we will get it back from the Comprehensive Plan, Advisory Committee. And then at that point is when we, the town board, will get it, as well as the public. So it will be out there for all of us. And then as we're going through chapter by chapter, comments, like that's where I'm saying the public can, I don't want to open up every single work session to a public hearing, but you can send us your written comments. You can, call us up and talk to us, track us down in the IGA. There will be opportunities for people to give us the information, write letters. I'm sure we're going to get them, and we will consider them as we go through chapter by chapter and hope that the public will also do that. It's just we're not going to get into these dialogues back and forth. Send us the information. We will consider it as we are reading through the chapters.
I think, thank you very much. I think in terms of dialogues, I think there are maybe 5 or 6 big issues that carry through the entire plan. I don't think we have to have arguments more, but we do need to have significant discussions about the major issues. And I would hope that in the chapter 11, the planners and the task force will finally include chapter 3 on zoning and land use. As we've said before, it is not adequate to say that references to the most important part of any comprehensive plan are scattered throughout the document in the relevant sections. That won't do. Thank you.
Thank you. Pam?
Yeah, hi there. I'd like to address this wetlands fast track process. There's nothing in chapter 129 that allows for this to happen. There are no forms and applications. What the town has received from the applicant, in fact, is a wetlands application. And therefore, there is more scrutiny that needs to be done with such a thing rather than just having the building department sign off on a 100 square foot exemption. Reviewing the plans on this new construction, and I realize that the ramp at the Ram's Head Inn has been decreased in a multitude of square footage. It doesn't match up with the dock plan that was approved. The dock plan that was approved, the dock is raised up at the tail end, at the landward end at 8 feet in height. This new ramp that supposedly is only 100 square feet is only about 3 feet in height. So we have an issue of conflict of plans to plans. One is not going to match up to the other. And I dare say that even though on paper it says a 4 by 25 square foot space, there's additional construction that would then put it over the 100 square foot in order to accommodate that transitional period from the dock to that new ramp. Also in the dock code, ramps are part of docks. They are included as part of the linear measurement of a dock to make sure that it's not over 1.5 times the length allowed. So why this ramp is even being considered as part of a wetlands application and not back to the dock application where it should be is of concern to me. A ramp is a part of a dock. It is an accessory to a dock. If you look at the definition of a dock in the wetlands code, it tells you what a dock is. So that needs to be reviewed. As far as the big ramp application, again, the square footage is over 100 square feet that she's looking for when you actually try to when you look at the plans and measure it up. Just because she threw numbers on a page that makes it look like it's less than, that's great. But in actuality, measured and scaled off of a scalable drawing, both applications are over 100 square feet. The catwalk for the big ram application was denied by the WMAC and the town board in the dock application. The town attorney has said in the dock application, that's when the ZBA considers the setbacks. And it was considered, and that's why it was denied. We have the same problem with the Ram's Head Inn. This ramp will be in the setbacks as part of a dock. It should go to the ZBA for review. So in my arguments going forward, I have since filed an appeal to the ZBA on both of these applications. And I would ask that the planning board makes a stay on these applications, does not permit and approve of this 100 square feet this evening until my appeal is heard and considered on these 2 applications before the planning board tonight.
Our department,
I believe I have standing on that. With the appeal to the ZBA, I believe the planning board cannot make any kind of action on those 2 applications this evening. Am I correct?
Our planning board chair is here and he has heard that, so he will consult with the planning board attorney, I presume.
But if in fact, by measure, in reality, that they are over 100 square feet, then this should go through the full wetlands application review. The application should be going to the CAC to review it. And the process should start appropriately from the beginning as a real wetlands application. I realize in the resolution 90, it was written that because the ramp was as large as it was months ago, that wetlands application was necessary. I question whether or not it is. I think it's part of the dock. I think the catwalk, the elevated catwalk is part of the dock. It's not a footpath. And in the dock code, it mentions walkways as a part of a structure of a dock, and it was denied. So this trying to find another way to get that catwalk on Big Ram approved by going to another board in town to say, well, we'll just make it smaller and it'll be 100-foot exemption and good, we're all good. Doesn't work with me, okay? Just so you all know where I stand. And I will see the planning board later this evening about this issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else in the Zoom audience? Anyone in the physical audience? Okay. Then I would like to entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss the employment history of an employee.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Thank you.